Chapter 62-62. Listening to Shu Yu's reprimand. Even if Xiao So was unwilling in her heart, she didn't dare to say anything more. These days, almost every time she mentioned this matter, her master would always reprimand her and make her give up on this idea. However, she believed that no matter who this kind of thing happened to, it was impossible to pretend that it didn't happen. If such a blood feud faded away like this, how would she have the face to face her ancestors in the future? It wasn't until Shu Yu left with Xiao Sudong that Xiao So quietly looked at the two secret keys in her hands. These two secret keys were given to her by her father and father-in-law. They believed that with her master's protection, they would be safe and sound. Di Beichun, I will never give this secret key to you. Gradually closing her hands, Xiao Sou's eyes revealed a bone-deep hatred. Even if she couldn't do anything now, at least she wouldn't let the Di family have the opportunity to open the land of inheritance. After the elders discussed the wedding process of Di Xiaofeng and Bailey Yunyan properly, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others returned to the Di family. However, in these 2 days, Bailey Hongzhuang didn't stay idle, but went to discuss medical skills with Dr. Wu. As the most famous doctor in the upper realm, Wu Weiming's strength was naturally unquestionable. What moved Bailey Hongzhuang the most was that after Wu Weiming knew the direction of the Bailey family, he simply moved directly to the Bailey family. It was very convenient to come and go between the three great families. In addition, there were many people in the Bailey family who wanted to learn medical skills, so it was more convenient for him to come here. During this time, Wu Weiming's medical skills had also improved. After seeing Bailey Hongzhuang, Wu Weiming also spoke out the doubts in his heart during this time. In this regard, Bailey Hongzhuang also answered one by one. Some of the questions were things she didn't understand before, but after learning from Grandma Hua, her medical skills had an extraordinary leap. So when faced with these questions, she was able to calmly deal with them. Even if the immortal region had some medicinal herbs that the upper realm didn't have, there were still many problems that could be solved. The only difference was that the medicinal herbs in the celestial realm were more plentiful, so the medical content was also more abundant. When Wu Weiming saw how easily Bailey Hongzhuang had solved all his problems, his heart was filled with shock. He had always felt that his master had been busy cultivating these days and probably didn't have time to study medicine. But now, it seemed that his master was a completely heaven-defying existence. It wasn't that she didn't study medicine. On the contrary, her improvement in medical skills was astonishing. With Bailey Hongzhuang's explanation, Wu Weiming only felt that his eyes were clear. The problem that had been troubling him for a long time was solved just like that. It even gave him more ideas, making his eyes light up. It turned out that many of the problems were due to the limitations of his thinking. There were still many bold directions that he could try. Bailey Hongzhuang saw such a studious Wu Weiming, and her heart was very pleased. With Wu Weiming here to teach the doctors of the Bailey family, the expansion of the medical family would definitely be faster. As for the doctors of the Bailey family who were studying medicine, they completely regarded Bailey Hongzhuang as a god. Every day, they cultivated with Dr. Wu, and they had deep admiration in their hearts. Chapter 62-63. As soon as they returned to the clan, the elders started to get busy like a raging fire. The number of things needed to be prepared for a grand wedding was huge. Just the guest list for the banquet alone was a long list. Di Yujue was also in a mess under the bombardment of Xiao Wanrong and Lin Yanqing. This kind of thing was indeed more suitable for women to worry about. Even as the head of the clan, he was also shocked by these various complicated problems and was even disliked by the two women in the end. It was only when Di Beichun came to him that he could finally breathe a sigh of relief. We're finally out of the house. Di Yujue felt the fresh air outside and only felt his entire body relax. Looking at Di Yujue like this, Di Beichun could not help but chuckle. It was really rare to see his father like this. Your grandfather is still the smart one. He found a reason to slip away. Di Yujue sighed faintly. Di Beichun raised his eyebrows. Then why didn't you also find a reason to leave? Your grandmother said that someone must stay. If your grandfather left, how could I still leave? As soon as these words came out, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but laugh. As early as 2 days ago, she had already seen how busy her grandmother and mother were. At this time, it was completely the two women's world. Her father's usual majesty had been completely ignored and even reduced to a subordinate. Di Yujue sighed and shook his head, then said, "Why are you looking for me?" "Father, I went to the land of inheritance with Hong Zhuang earlier. There are some things I want to ask you," Di Beichen said. Hearing this, Di Yujue was not surprised. The land of inheritance was at the back of the mountain. It was reasonable that Beichen and the rest want to go and see it. "What's the problem? Didn't you say that to open the land of inheritance, you need the blood of us and the Shao clan's cultivators? I remember Father saying that after the two types of blood fuse, it will turn black. That way, the land of heritage can be opened. Is this true?" Di Yujue nodded slightly. "That's right. Only when two types of blood turn black can the land of heritage be opened. Have you tried it?" Di Beichun and Bailey Hong Zhuang glanced at each other, their expressions a bit complicated. Their blood did not turn black after the fusion. Looking at the two's expressions, Di Yujue already knew the result. He smiled and said, "This is nothing much. Now that the Shao clan has basically been exterminated by us, it is impossible for them to open the land of inheritance. Although the land of heritage has always been of great benefit to our family, even if we can't open it, with our family's ability, it won't be a problem. So you don't have to worry about it." The two of them understood. In fact, the land of heritage had always been protecting the feelings of the three great clans. Originally, even without the Jun clan, as long as the relationship between the Shao clan and the Di clan was as before, then everything would not have fallen to this point. However, long before Di Yujue made such a decision, he already knew the consequences of such a decision. Even if the land of heritage was not opened, it would not have much of an impact on the Di clan. However, if the Shao clan and the Jun clan were left, then the clan would be in real danger. Then why did my blood turn gold when Hong Zhuang and I fused? Di Beichen still felt that this was a little strange. Normally, even if the blood of two people had no effect, it should still be the usual color, right? Chapter 62-64. Following Di Beichen's words, Di Yujue's expression suddenly changed, his eyes filled with disbelief. "What did you just say? After your blood fused, it turned golden?" "That's right." Di Beichen nodded slightly. "Is there a problem?" Di Yujue did not answer, his expression instantly becoming complicated. His mind was spinning rapidly, as if he was thinking of some complicated problem. "Golden blood. This seems to have appeared in ancient books before. I have to go through them. Because the land of heritage had not been opened for too many years, it was not easy for Beichun, a clan member with the cursed body, to appear, but in the end, he went missing. All these years, he had been thinking about how to find Beichun. However, after Beichun returned, many problems arose, including the falling out with the Shao family. Because of this, he did not have much hope for the land of heritage. Now, his memories of the land of heritage were still stuck in the past. After all, it was still somewhat blurry. However, he was sure that the ancient books had indeed recorded the matter of golden blood, and although the situation of golden blood was recorded in the ancient books, in all these years, such a situation had never appeared in the Di family. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun were somewhat surprised. They had thought that this was a normal phenomenon, but now it seemed that this was not the case. This information was obviously extremely important to Di Yujue. After saying this, Di Yujue did not bother to explain in detail, and after a few words, he quickly left. The direction he left in was obviously the family's library. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Perhaps this golden blood is even more powerful than the black blood. Even if she was not of the Shao family's bloodline, her light attribute was stronger than Shao Sou's. Most importantly, when she saw the land of heritage, she and Beichun had fallen into that strange feeling this land of heritage should be related to them. Very likely. Di Beichun nodded and held Bailey Hongzhuang's hand. "After all, my wife and I are a match made in heaven." Bailey Hongzhuang burst into laughter. "Every time you say something like that, so seriously, I always find it funny. I'm telling the truth. Shouldn't I take it seriously? Di Beichun said calmly. You're right. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded, pretending to be serious. After returning to the house, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun began to cultivate. After Mo Yunjue and the others understood the terrifying strength of the cultivators of the immortal region, they no longer had the mood to play around. Instead, they wholeheartedly began to cultivate. If this continued, they didn't know how long they would need the four seniors to protect them. Moreover, they were about to explore the sea. Although there were not many cultivators in the sea, it was much more dangerous than on land. Because very few human cultivators set foot in the sea, the demonic beasts in the sea had enough space to develop. After a long period of cultivation, these demonic beast strength would often be very shocking. And this was also one of the reasons why very few people went to the sea. If they were not careful and lost their lives there, they would not even have a corpse left. Now, their cultivation was not bad in the upper realm, but they still had to make more preparations to go to the sea. However, the two of them did not cultivate for long before Diyujue appeared outside their door. Chapter 62-65. Diyujue's face was filled with unconcealable excitement. He directly handed the ancient book in his hand to Di Beichun and said, There is indeed a record in the ancient book. It says that once the blood turns golden, it means that the destined person for the inheritance has appeared. As soon as he said this, Di Beichun and Bailey Hongzhuang were both slightly stunned. This result was truly beyond their expectations. Because it has never appeared in so many years, the records in the book are not very complete. However, I saw some records in the Patriarch's handwritten notes. It says that the most important reason why we have the land of heritage is that we have always been guarding a kind of inheritance, and this inheritance is waiting for the destined person. Too much time has passed, and some of the contents in the handwritten notes have been worn away. I guess that it's because there hasn't been any movement for so many years, so everyone gradually neglected this point. If you hadn't mentioned this point, I'm afraid I wouldn't have thought of it. Diyujue's voice was filled with deep excitement. In fact, he had always felt that it was too difficult to open the land of heritage, especially after so many years had passed without opening it. The entire clan no longer paid much attention to it. However, at a time like this, Di Beichun and Hongzhuang's blood had actually appeared. This in itself was very inconceivable. Di Beichun carefully read the records in the ancient book. As expected, it described the situation when the golden blood appeared. Previously, when he and Hongzhuang tried it, the situation was exactly the same as described in the book. It really is like this. The corners of Di Beichun's lips curled up slightly. His heart was also filled with shock. He clearly remembered the complex emotions he had when he saw the land of heritage. It was like a call from the depths of his soul, as if there was something important that he had forgotten, and the forgotten thing was in the land of heritage. Was the situation at the time the same as described in the book? Diyujue asked. That's right. It was exactly the same. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded in response. Hearing this, Diyujue narrowed his eyes, and his gaze became solemn and serious. If that's the case, then we can't give up on finding the secret key. If it was a normal situation, it would have been fine. Although it was hard to give up, if he thought about it carefully, giving up wouldn't have much of an impact. However, just from the sound of it, one could tell that the destined person was extraordinary. This could be an extremely important inheritance for Di Beichun. It would be such a pity if it was gone just like that. For the entire Di family, this was too much a pity. Seeing the change in Diyujue's expression, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun didn't say anything, but they had the same idea. He could not give up on the secret key just like that. No matter what was in the land of heritage, they had to go in and take a look. Don't be in a hurry to tell anyone about this for the time being. I still don't know much about this. I was too anxious just now and didn't ask your grandfather. I'll go and ask tomorrow. Who knows, your grandfather might have a better understanding. It won't be too late for us to discuss it then. Diyujue patted Di Beichun's shoulder and reminded him. Don't worry, father. I understand. Good. When Diyujue left, Bailey Hongzhuang knew very well that if Xiao So didn't have Shu Yu's protection, her father would have directly captured her and brought her back. Chapter 62-66. The next day, Di Lin Xian was equally shocked when he heard the news. However, he was pleasantly surprised. The fated person that the family had been waiting for so many years had finally appeared. Moreover, it was Di Beichun. I always thought that it was just a legend. I never thought that it would be true. Di Lin Xian had a kind smile on his face. However, his eyes were still filled with disbelief. I still remember when the previous head of the family mentioned this to me. He also felt that it was not true and that the previous head of the family had made it up to make us realize the importance of the land of heritage. The Di family has been passed down for thousands of years. However, it has never appeared before. I never thought that this fable would come true today. Even though they had not seen the fusion of Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun's blood with their own eyes, Di Lin Xian and Di Yujue did not doubt it at all. Not to mention that Di Beichun and Di Yujue could not talk to each other. Not many people in the family knew about the golden blood. Grandfather, do you know any other clues? Di Beichun had a serious expression. He vaguely felt that his grandfather would tell him more clues today. Di Lin Xian patted Di Beichun's head and smiled. Indeed. According to what I know, the golden blood is very special. As soon as he said this, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun both became serious and listened carefully. Although this inheritance belongs to the Di family, it has always been guarded by the three great families together. Too much time has passed, and we no longer know the reason for it. However, we can be sure that one of them must have the light attribute. Now, it seems that as long as the light attribute is pure enough, the Shao family's bloodline is not the only one that can do it. Di Lin Xian smiled faintly and said, apart from the fated person, there is something else that the previous head of the family told me. Usually, if we want to open the land of heritage, we need 3 secret keys in addition to the fusion of the blood and turning it black. However, when the golden blood appears, the situation seems to be different. As for why it is different, I'm not too sure. However, we can give it a try. For thousands of years, the golden blood had never appeared. Even if the first head of the family knew about it, it had been forgotten by everyone after so many years. Different. Di Beichun's eyes lit up. Does this mean that we can open it directly? Perhaps we can use this one and only secret key to give a try. Di Yujue raised his brows, and his face was filled with interest. If they could open the land of heritage in their lifetime, it would be a rare experience. Everyone looked at each other with a hint of eagerness in their eyes. Should we try it after Big Brother's wedding? Di Beichun pondered for a moment before speaking. It was only a month until his elder brother's wedding. If he entered the land of inheritance like this, he was afraid that he would not be able to come out for a while. Listening to Di Beichun's words, Di Lin Xian and Di Yujue glanced at each other. According to their thoughts, they wanted to give a try. After all, the land of heritage was very important to them. However, if the 2 important women in the family knew that they might not be there on the day of the wedding, they would definitely go crazy. After thinking about it carefully, both of them felt that Di Beichun's idea was correct. Chapter 62-67. After he made up his mind, everything returned to normal. This news was undoubtedly good news for everyone. Even if they didn't know whether this attempt would succeed or not, since they knew that the golden blood was special, they had to find a way to open the land of inheritance. At least, this was no longer a dispensable land of inheritance. On the contrary, it might be very important to Di Beichun. When the other people in the family knew about this, they were also very surprised. Xiao Wanrong, Di Xiaofeng, and the others were very happy. If the land of inheritance could really be opened, then their Di family would really be a big winner. After returning to the family, Di Beichun often went to the Dark Sacred Assembly. As the president of the Dark Sacred Assembly, he had a responsibility to the Dark Sacred Assembly. However, for the Dark Sacred Assembly, Di Beichun was more like a religion. Even if he was rarely in the guild, his position in everyone's hearts would never change. Huang Futing had always been very good at handling guild matters. The vice president's identity was really suitable for him. After leaving the family, he had already regarded the Dark Sacred Assembly as his own home. As the status of Dark Attribute cultivators rose, more and more people began to accept dark attribute cultivators. In fact, even the other 7 guilds had already accepted them. Everyone had to accept them, even if they didn't want to. Not to mention that the Dark Guild was now at the peak of its power. The Huangfu family's attitude towards Huangfu Ting had also changed. They even specially sent people to find Huangfu Ting. No matter what, Huangfu Ting was an extremely outstanding talent of the Huangfu family. In this regard, Huangfu Ting had no plans to go back. Everything back then had already made him see through the family's coldness. If it was only because he was now the vice president of the Dark Sacred Assembly and had a certain use to the family, then what was the point of going back? After experiencing ups and downs, he felt that it was better to live a simple life. What's more, one had abandoned the family because of him. Now, the only hope was to no longer have anything to do with the past. Just this point alone made it impossible for him to go back. Di Beichun didn't persuade Huangfu Ting after hearing his decision. If it were him, he probably wouldn't want to go back to such a family. After all, he'd fallen from his pedestal and been deserted by his friends and family, and he'd even endured such pain that pierced his bones. So, he felt that it was extremely ironic to face these snakes that were feigning civility. While Di Beichun was busy with the matters of the Dark Guild, Bailey Hongzhuang made a trip to the Holy Light Assembly and then stayed with her family. Lan Yunxiao and the others had also awakened their attributes and began to cultivate their attribute powers. Even Di Yujua couldn't help but praise the increase in their strength. With this kind of cultivation talent, if he had been in the upper realm in the past, he would have been famous by now. However, even if it was a little late, it was not a big deal. During this month, Bailey Hongzhuang decided to spend more time with her family. He was always busy with his cultivation, and in the future, he would have to go to the sea to look for the treasure map. He had too little time to spend with his family. Lan Yunxiao and the rest also understood Bailey Hongzhuang's thoughts. Everyone temporarily slowed down their cultivation. Actually, as parents, the happiest thing was to get along well with their children. Chapter 62-68. On this day, the Di family had arrived at the Lin family early in the morning. Today's wedding was held in the Lin family. Xiao Wanrong and the others had already lived in the Lin family a few days ago and had made all the necessary preparations. Di Beichun and Bailey Hongzhuang split up and went to the Lin family and the Bailey family respectively. Di Beichun was Di Xiaofeng's younger brother. On the day of his big brother's wedding, he naturally had to help pick up the bride. Bailey Hongzhuang was the head of the Bailey family and had to stay with the Bailey family to organize everything. Inside the house, Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the festive scene outside, and the smile on her lips became brighter and brighter. Today is really a good day. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and turned to look at Bailey Yunyan, who had already dressed up. Her eyes revealed a stunned expression. Yunyan, you're so beautiful today. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Bailey Yunyan was a little shy and said, Hongzhuang, you're overpraising me. In terms of beauty, you're the peerless beauty. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. The bride is always the most beautiful. I think when eldest brother sees you later, he will be very happy. Everyone, don't you think so? All the busy maids in the room smiled and agreed. Miss Yunyan is really beautiful today. Later, the son-in-law will be stunned. With everyone's teasing, Bailey Yunyan's cheeks became even redder. Bailey Yunyan's mother and others were also busy helping to take care of things. Bailey Hongzhuang thought that before becoming a monk, mother and daughter had the most things to talk about. She might as well leave first and give Yunyan and her daughter a chance to talk. However, when she saw Bailey Hongzhuang preparing to leave, Bailey Yunyan suddenly called out to her. Mother, you go out first. I have something to say to the head of the family. Elder Madam nodded and bowed to Bailey Hongzhuang. Then, she walked out of the room and closed the door. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Bailey Yunyan in surprise. She smiled and sat down. Is there anything you want to ask me? Bailey Yunyan shook her head. She just looked at him quietly. Her eyes were filled with gratitude. Hongzhuang, actually, on this joyous occasion, the person I want to thank the most is you. If it weren't for you, even if I knew Xiao Feng was sincere to me, I wouldn't dare accept his feelings, because the gap between us is too big. Bailey Yunyan's eyes suddenly reddened. Actually, I've liked him since a long time ago. I just didn't dare to admit it. He was so handsome, outstanding, and otherworldly. When I first met him, almost all the girls fell head over heels for him, and I was no exception. However, I never thought that such luck would fall on my head. It was too sudden and too surreal. During that time, I was struggling in my heart. On one hand, I wanted to believe Xiao Feng's words. I didn't need to care about anything. I just needed to trust him. On the other hand, I thought that with such a big gap, who would believe me? I even thought that even being a concubine would be good. At least I could stay by his side. However, I was afraid. With my background, what would happen to me if I were to go to his family? Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the teary-eyed Bailey Yunyin, her hands holding the latter's slightly trembling hands, her smile warm and sunny. Yunyin, it's all in the past. Big Brother has always been someone worthy of your trust. Chapter 62-69. No. Bailey Yunyin shook her head. I understand what you mean, but there's still a difference between the two. Compared to placing all my hopes on Xiao Feng, at least I have more confidence now. And because of you, no one will talk about my identity, so I have more confidence. Bailey Yunyin's eyes shone brightly, as if they were filled with infinite hope. So, Hongzhuang, I really want to thank you. I wanted to say this for a long time, but I didn't know how to say it. Today is the day I want to say it the most. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled elegantly. She patted Bailey Yunyin's hand and said, We're already a family, and I've always been happy to be able to come to the Bailey family. You'll definitely be happy, and we'll walk the road together in the future. There's no need to say thanks between us. If it weren't for Bailey Yunyin, she wouldn't have been able to come to the Bailey family so smoothly. There were some things she couldn't say, but it was her responsibility to lead the Bailey family back to the top. She didn't know what the Bailey family would be like if she didn't fall, but she was sure that the family's legacy was lost because of her, and that was her biggest mistake. All of this wasn't for anyone else, but for herself. She wanted to be able to feel at ease, so that she wouldn't feel guilty anymore. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Bailey Yunyin's smile became brighter. Hongzhuang, no matter when, you're always so considerate. Maybe it's because of your character that so many people like you. I believe that you'll go far in the future, and you'll be happy forever. Among all of them, Bailey Hongzhuang was the one she admired the most, but she never thought of comparing herself to her. She only hoped that she could make Hongzhuang her goal and continue to work hard. She didn't expect to have great achievements. As long as she could live a good life, she would be satisfied. Soon, the wedding procession arrived. The entire Bailey family was in a state of jubilation. Red flowers could be seen everywhere. Everyone's lips could not help but curl up into a smile as they sincerely wished the newlyweds well. As the young master of the Lin family, Di Xiaofeng's wedding procession was also very spectacular. From afar, the crowd could see a long line of people approaching, and the sound of firecrackers could be heard all the way. Bailey Yunyin covered her head with a red veil. With the support of her concubine, she bid farewell to her clansmen and slowly walked up the bridal sedan. Throughout the entire process, many people had tears in their eyes, but their hearts were filled with joy. This wedding was the grandest wedding in the history of the Bailey family. With the arrival of the wedding procession, Bailey Hongzhuang also went to the Lin family. The clamor and laughter were mixed together. Congratulatory voices could be heard everywhere. When one looked up, they could see smiles and joy. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled up slightly. Now, her grandmother didn't need to worry anymore. Xiaofeng was finally married. Wife, you're here. As soon as Bailey Hongzhuang appeared, Di Beichen's sharp eyes noticed her. After apologizing to the people who came to congratulate her, he quickly came to her side. Everyone is very busy today. You should also be busy receiving the guests. Di Beichen held Bailey Hongzhuang's hand as they walked inside. When they reached the side, he put his hands on her shoulders and said softly, Today, it's not only me who is busy receiving the guests. As big brother's sister-in-law, you should also help. Chapter 60-70. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. I'm not good at this kind of thing. It's okay if you're not good at it. Just stand next to me. If someone congratulates you, just smile. If there's nothing else, you can see if there's anything you like to eat. Grandmother and maternal grandmother have invited the best chefs for today. There should be a lot of delicious snacks. Di Baichen smiled. Master, I want to go. Xiao Hei jumped up when she heard that there was delicious food. Master, I want to go too, Xiao Bai said happily. They loved this kind of lively scene. They could eat a lot of delicious food. Eat whatever you want today. Let the mistress bring you there. Di Baichen chuckled. Okay. Xiao Hei and Xiao Bai jumped on a Bailey Hongzhuang's shoulder and looked at her. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang also nodded slightly. Well, I will take you there in a while. Oh yeah, where did Xiao Xuanzi go? Bailey Hongzhuang asked curiously. Xiao Xuanzi was usually very interested in this kind of thing. Ever since he met Xiao Hua, Xiao Xuanzi was determined to lose weight and become a handsome young man. However, now that he was back, he wouldn't be able to go back for a while. He should be the most depressed one. Xiao Xuanzi is with Xiren and the others. He should be greeting people now. Di Baichen guessed Bailey Hongzhuang's thoughts. He immediately said, he's been in a good mood recently. He doesn't seem to be disappointed. According to him, he often follows Xiao Hua around. Xiao Hua also thinks that he's annoying. Xiao Hua might miss him if he's not around for a while. Before he left, he even told Zhongli to take care of Xiao Hua. He didn't want Xiao Hua to be taken away by other people. Bailey Hongzhuang was impressed. Baichen, did you teach Xiao Xuanzi these thoughts? How does he look like a contracted beast? He's totally an experienced lover. This has nothing to do with me. Di Baichen drew a clear line between them. My feelings for wifey can be seen by the sun and the moon. I definitely don't have as many schemes as Xiao Xuanzi. I don't know. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. Let's go. These two little guys are almost drooling. Emperor Xiaofeng was getting married. Almost all the major forces in the upper realm were gathered here. Such a grand occasion had never happened before, and it proved that the Di family and the Lin family had risen in status. No one could ignore the influence of the Di family and the Lin family, so they all came after receiving the wedding invitation. As for those who did not receive the wedding invitation, they were extremely disappointed. Even when night fell, the Lin family was still bustling with activity. It's rare for us to be so happy today. Let's drink till we're drunk. When Xiren happily raised his cup, he was already slightly drunk, and his cheeks were flushed red. His eyes were a little blurry, but the smile on his face became even more brilliant. Well said. Let's drink to our heart's content today. Bang! Mo Yunjue raised his glass and touched it gently. The two drank to their heart's content. Di Baichen and the others were all gathered here. Everyone was talking to each other happily. It's a pity that Xiaofeng is with the bride now. Otherwise, we'll get him to drink with us. Haha. Chapter 62-71. We definitely will. Everyone raised their cups and downed the wine in one gulp. Xiren, you talk too much when you drink too much. Shang Guanying pointed at Xiren drunkenly. Our relationship is so good. Of course we will be together in the future. Haha, you're right. I'll punish myself with a glass. How can Yin Yin and I miss such a good day? Suddenly, a hearty laughter was heard. Then, Di Xiaofeng and Bailey Yunyin's figures appeared in everyone's sight. Noticing the sudden appearance of the two people, everyone was startled. Their eyes were filled with astonishment. Why are you here? Di Xiaofeng pulled Bailey Yunyin to sit down and smiled. Why can't I be here? I have to be here when we drink to our heart's content. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen looked at each other. Their good mood became even better. Haha, good. Come, let's all congratulate Xiao Feng and Yin Yin. That night, everyone drank to their heart's content. In the end, they didn't even know what happened. When Bailey Hongzhuang woke up the next morning, she still felt a little dizzy. With their strength, even if they had a hangover, it wouldn't affect them much the next day. However, they were still a little dizzy, which proved that they drank too much last night. However, Bailey Hongzhuang found that the person sleeping next to her wasn't Di Baichen. Ying haha. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the dazed Shangguan Ying and couldn't help but laugh. We slept together last night. Shangguan Ying was a little confused. After a while, she said, I was so drunk last night that I forgot what happened. I vaguely remember that the two of us supported each other as we walked into the room. I don't know what happened after that. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. Because they were too happy last night, everyone was a little carried away. With their capacity for alcohol, how much did they drink? It seems so. Shangguan and Ying nodded slightly. Let's go out and take a look. Naturally, they couldn't have been outside the whole night, right? The two of them looked at each other. After washing up, they quickly walked out of the house. Looking at the scene outside, the two of them found it funny. In his line of sight, when Ziren, Bai Li Yin Che, and Xiao Xuanzi had already fallen crookedly on the ground. It seemed that they were still sleeping soundly. Bai Li Yin Che quietly lay on his side. Ziren directly put his feet on Bai Li Yin Che's body and slept very comfortably with his four limbs sprawled out. Xiao Xuanzi's feet were right next to his face. On the other hand, Linger and Mo Yunjue slept more elegantly. Both of them fell asleep on the table. Shangguan Ying covered her eyes and said with disgust, "This is too embarrassing." Ha! Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but laugh. If they wake up and see this scene, it will be very funny. But where did Beichen go? Last night, they obviously drank too much. However, Xiao Feng and Yun didn't drink too much. So, they went back first. Everyone was here. Only Di Bei Chun was nowhere to be seen. Yes, where did Beichen go? Shangguan Ying asked curiously. Chapter 62-72. Mo Yunjue looked at the scene in front of him and quickly thought of yesterday's situation. He immediately sighed. You actually slept here last night? Ling also looked embarrassed. As a well-mannered dragon, she usually wouldn't be so careless about her image. Looking at their slightly awkward expressions, Shangguan Ying directly said, "The two of you are still all right. Look at them." Hearing that, Mo Yunjue and Ling were slightly startled. The tables and chairs blocked their view, and the two couldn't help but walk over to Bailey Hongzhuang's side. They immediately saw Ziren and the other two sleeping soundly. Mo Yunjue laughed out loud, which was a rare sight. Their sleeping positions are really too enchanting. Looking carefully, only Yin Che's sleeping position is passable. Finally, Ziren and Xiao Xuanzi, I really don't know what to say. Shangguan Ying sighed. Usually, Ziren's sleeping position was fine. After all, one shouldn't wash one's dirty linen in public. Great, now everyone saw it. When 4 pairs of eyes fell on a person, even if that person was originally sleeping soundly, they would still be somewhat aware of it. Therefore, Ziren slowly woke up under everyone's gaze. As soon as he opened his eyes, he saw 4 pairs of eyes looking at him. He immediately quivered, and his face directly touched Xiao Xuanzi's foot. He subconsciously picked up the thing that touched his face, and after noticing that it was actually a foot, he hurriedly threw it aside and sat up. When he saw that it was Shangguan Ying and the other 3, he sighed in relief. What's going on? See for yourself what's going on. When he turned his head, Bai Li Yin Che and Xiao Xuanzi had also woken up. Their blank expressions caused everyone to chuckle. Ahem. Faced with everyone's mocking gazes, Ziren also felt a little embarrassed. He couldn't help but ask, where did Beichen go? I don't know. In my opinion, Beichen might be sleeping in a corner that we didn't notice. Let's go look for him, Ziren said. You're looking for me? Di Beichen's figure slowly appeared in everyone's line of sight. Compared to Ziren and the others who were in a mess, Di Beichen's appearance was refreshing. Beichen, did you wake up earlier than us, so you want to change your clothes first? Ziren couldn't help but ask when he saw Di Beichen suddenly appear. I went back to my room to sleep last night, Di Beichen said frankly. Liar! Xiao Xuanzi's face was full of disbelief. Yesterday, you clearly drank more than us. Why did I sleep with Ying when you went back to your room? Bailey Hongzhuang was confused. Di Beichen smiled faintly. Last night, I planned to go back with you, but you and Ying were together after drinking too much. I asked you to go back, but you said you wanted to be with Ying, so I went back after sending you to your room. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangguan Ying looked at each other, their minds quickly recalling the fragmented memories of last night. Suddenly, when a picture appeared in their minds, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but stick out her tongue. It seems to be true. No way. Ziren looked frustrated. Since you were fine last night, why didn't you send me back to my room? Chapter 62-73. Ha ha. Until lunchtime, Shangguan Yingying and the rest could not help but laugh at Xiren and Xiao Xuanzi. The scene of these two guys being drunk was really funny. Even Di Xiaofeng and Bailey Yunyan could not help but laugh when they heard about it. Come on, aren't they just drunk? You can't keep laughing at us, right? Xiren put down his chopsticks. Was it because he could not stand the laughter anymore? It's okay, huh? Shangguan Yingying chuckled. It's just that the situation was really funny. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Xiren and Shangguan Yingying. She secretly sighed that Xiren was destined to fall in Yingying's hands. Among all of them, Shangguan Yingying was the one who laughed the loudest. Xiao Xuanzi helplessly patted Xiren's shoulder. Brother, you have to take good care of your wife. For this grand wedding, the Lin family held a banquet for 7 days and invited all forces to come and play. Because of this, there were all kinds of temporary markets in the city. It was very lively. The 100 Lane clan's status rose again because of this matter. They had jumped from an unknown small clan to a clan with great potential that attracted a lot of attention. Everyone knew that with the help of so many forces, the Bailey family's rise was only a matter of time. D family. When Di Beichen and the rest returned to the family, the whole family was still in a happy atmosphere. However, Di Yujue and the rest had already focused on the land of inheritance. After knowing about this, everyone could not wait to find out if they could open the land of inheritance with their power. It would be best if they could open it without the 3 keys. Therefore, on this day, Di Yuja organized a group of talented cultivators from the Di family to go to the back mountain. Standing in front of the land of inheritance, Di Lin Xian and Di Yujua looked at the altar and the closed door in front of them seriously. All these years, they would occasionally come here to take a look, but they never had the chance to open it. Beichun, if this land of heritage can really be opened, that would be great. Di Xiaofeng's heart was filled with excitement. His father hadn't told him this before, and he had only just found out. Growing up in the clan, many people would inadvertently mention the land of heritage, saying that if the clan did not have a land of heritage, it would be impossible for them to have their current status. It was precisely because of this that he was even more curious. He did not know what kind of power existed in the land of heritage that would be of such great help to the clan. Di Beichen's expression was complicated. Even though it was his second time here, his mood was inevitably affected. What did this place have to do with him? Big brother, we still can't be sure if we can really open it. Di Beichen pursed his lips. If we can't open it, we have to find a way to find the secret key. Even if Shu Yu is protecting Xiao Sou, we have to get it. Hearing this, Di Xiaofeng nodded seriously. You're right. It's rare for a destined person to appear. If we can't enter the land of heritage to take a look, I won't be able to accept it. Although Shu Yu's power far surpassed theirs, Shu Yu could protect them for a while, but not forever. Once their power surpassed Shu Yu, they would definitely find Xiao Sou and ask for the secret key's location. Chapter 60-74. All the cultivators from the Di family stood on the spot with solemn expressions. In front of them was the foundation of the Di family. If it were not for the land of heritage, the Di family would not have been able to stand out among so many forces and become stronger step by step to achieve their current status. Even though the land of heritage had not been opened for many years, its position in the hearts of every member of the Di family was unshakable. If they could enter the land of heritage, it would be their pride. As Di Lin Xian and Di Yujua bowed respectfully, Di Beichen and the others also bowed respectfully. At this moment, Di Lin Xian turned his head and said, regarding the records of the Golden Blood, the ancient books do not have complete records because it has never appeared for so many years. Therefore, we don't know what the result will be. Perhaps this door cannot be open at all. However, I hope that everyone will not be discouraged because we will definitely find the other 2 secret keys. It's only a matter of time. Hearing the magnetic and majestic voice, everyone present nodded. They were indeed very hopeful about opening the land of heritage. However, the possibility of not being able to open it was indeed very high. After noticing the changes in everyone's expressions, Di Lin Xian raised his hand and said, Beichun, Hongzhuang, you may begin. Bailey Hongzhuang and the 2 of them looked at each other and smiled faintly. Then, the 2 of them slowly walked forward. With a slash of their sharp blades, blood dripped onto the round tray in the center of the altar. After the two's blood merged with the altar, everyone quieted down and focused their attention on the altar. The bright red blood flowed, and gradually, the blood began to change. It slowly turned into the color of gold leaf. It was as dazzling as gold, but it was shockingly pure. Looking at the golden blood, Diujue and the others could not help but be moved. This was because the blood looked extraordinary at first glance and had a power that could shake one's heart. Over the years, they had tried to merge the blood, but there was no change at all. However, this golden color was too magical. When all the blood had turned golden, it gradually merged with the altar. Then, everyone turned their attention to the door of the land of heritage. Diujue handed the D family's secret key to Di Beichen. Di Beichen also took the secret key and slowly walked forward. Looking at the 3 keyholes in the center of the door, he placed one of the secret keys. The moment Di Beichen placed the secret key on the door, a ray of light shot up into the sky. Everyone's faces were filled with shock. They quickly stabilized their figures, but they couldn't help but feel a strong sense of anticipation in their hearts. In fact, this had never happened in the history of the D family. A black power gradually rose from the land of inheritance, and in the blink of an eye, it had already wrapped Di Beichen. Everyone stared blankly at Di Beichen, who was enveloped by the black light. He seemed to have fallen into a deep sleep, and his body slowly rose into the air. Chapter 62-75. A terrifying black energy appeared in midair like a giant beast. It was clearly daytime, but it was now as dark as night. Di Beichen stood in midair. His handsome, godlike face was expressionless. His eyes, which were as deep as the sea, were filled with arrogance and indifference. Unlike his usual expression, at this moment, everyone felt that Di Beichen was a god revered by tens of thousands. No one dared to meet his indifferent gaze. An indescribable aura of nobility emanated from his body. It was arrogant, disdainful, and condescending. It was as if he could control the fate of the world with a wave of his hand. Everyone present stared at this scene in shock. This Di Beichen was so unfamiliar, yet he possessed a terrifying power that made one's heart palpitate. What's going on with Beichen? Ziren stared blankly at this scene. This was the first time he felt that Beichen was so foreign to him. Destined person. Is this the destined person? Di Lin, Xin murmured. Ever since they found out about the concept of the destined person, they had been pondering over the true meaning of the destined person. Di Beichen was the D family's cursed body cultivator who had only appeared in the past 100 years. They had already realized that he was extraordinary from the moment he was born. To be able to return alive after leaving the family for so many years was already very shocking. Everything led them to believe that Di Beichen was the one who could open the land of heritage. However, the scene before them had exceeded their understanding. Perhaps Di Beichen was even more shocking than they had imagined. Diujue was also shocked to see this power that exceeded their understanding. This change was no longer something they could understand. Perhaps what they had understood in the past was not the true power of the land of heritage. The land of heritage that had been opened in the past was just a reward for their family. However, what Beichen had just touched was the true inheritance of their family. Just as everyone was thinking, the black energy became more and more terrifying. A terrifying aura that they had never seen before exploded. The entire D family was instantly enveloped by this black energy. Everyone felt as if they had seen a god. The terrifying pressure forced everyone to kneel down in submission. This kind of power had completely exceeded their understanding. It was a power that no one could possess. In the mountains surrounding the D family, the mystical beasts crawled on the ground and trembled. They did not dare to raise their heads. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, who were closest to them, felt that under the suppression of this power, they could not even move. Everyone couldn't help but kneel down, but only a white figure stood in place, staring blankly at the astonishing figure. Bailey Hongzhuang looked around. She didn't know why everyone had already knelt down, but only she could still stand. However, facing Di Beichan in this state, she only felt a distant and unfamiliar emotion emerge in her heart. However, before she could understand what kind of emotion it was, it had already disappeared. Di Beichan's gaze slowly fell upon Bailey Hongzhuang. It was a complicated, unfamiliar, yet somewhat familiar gaze. In the next moment, the black light enveloped Di Beichan and swept him into the land of heritage. Only when the terrifying aura disappeared, Di Yujue and the others were able to raise their heads. Their bodies relaxed. Chapter 62-76. Phew. All the cultivators present were panting heavily. The scene just now was simply too horrifying. Under that kind of terrifying suppression, even breathing became exceptionally difficult. What happened just now? Di Xiaofeng could not help but ask. Where did Beichan go? Everyone present looked at each other. In the face of that terrifying power, they all lowered their heads. They did not even have the courage to raise their heads. It was because of this that they did not know what happened after that and where Beichan went. Beichan entered the land of inheritance, Bailey Hongzhuang said. She was probably the only one who knew about this scene. Hearing this, Di Yujue's eyes lit up. So, Beichan also successfully entered? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. That's right. Di Linchuan's expression was complicated. Although Di Beichan entered the land of inheritance, the situation was clearly quite different from what they had imagined. What was the so-called destined person? Why did he have such terrifying power? It was too scary just now. Beichan's aura also became very unfamiliar. I wonder what's going on? Shangguan Yingying frowned. At that moment, she felt that the person standing in midair was not the Beichan they were familiar with. Instead, he was a natural ruler, cold and terrifying. Bailey Hongzhuang also fell into deep thought. I don't know what's going on either. However, when Beichan comes out, perhaps we will know. Hongzhuang, this happened after you and Beichan's blood fused. Why did only Beichan enter and you didn't? Di Xiaofeng was a little puzzled. Although the land of inheritance was opened with the help of the Xiao family, the Xiao family's cultivators had also entered every time. Logically speaking, Hongzhuang should have entered as well. As soon as the words came out, everyone's eyes fell on Bailey Hongzhuang. Previously, everyone had already surrendered uncontrollably. Only Bailey Hongzhuang was still standing in the same place. This had already revealed her uniqueness. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Big brother, this is the legacy of the Di family. I'm just an opportunity. Beichan is the one destined for it. You're right. Di Xiaofeng nodded slightly. In the past, the land of heritage was entered together with the cultivators of the family. Now that only Beichan has entered, I wonder what the situation will be like. No matter what, someone finally made it in. Di Linxian smiled faintly. Xiao Yanlong and Junhong Cheng have always hoped that our Di family would never be able to open the land of inheritance. Now, it seems like they have already failed. Following Di Beichan's disappearance, everyone tried again. After confirming that the door to the land of inheritance was indeed unable to open, Di Linxian allowed the group of disciples to return. Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest did not return. They did not know when Di Beichan would come out. Moreover, when Di Beichan entered previously, his condition was clearly different from usual. They did not know if there would be any problems. Bailey Hongzhuang guarded the entrance of the land of inheritance every day, waiting for Di Beichan's safe return. According to Di Yujue and the rest, the land of inheritance was the inheritance of the Di family. Even if they had entered the land of inheritance in the past, it was not very dangerous. Beichan was also destined for it. There should not be any danger in entering. Chapter 62-77. Every day, Di Linxian and Di Yujue would also come over to take a look. Because such a situation had never happened before, no one was sure when Beichan would come out. However, according to past experience, he wouldn't be in the land of inheritance for too long. Father, I feel like this land of inheritance is prepared for darkness attribute cultivators. Di Xiaofeng looked at the closed door and pondered, black blood, black energy. Perhaps we should have discovered this a long time ago. The probability of darkness attribute cultivators appearing was as low as light attribute cultivators. Among the various attributes, the probability of these two attributes appearing was the lowest. In the history of the D family, darkness attribute cultivators had appeared before, but no one had thought about it carefully. Dujuf fell into deep thought. That black light is indeed very special. Beichin is of the darkness attribute and founded the Dark Sacred Assembly. If we link everything together, it is indeed possible. Although the family has opened the land of inheritance in the past, that kind of black light has never appeared, so the previous patriarchs didn't pay much attention to it. Di Xiaofeng smiled faintly. I still can't forget the scene of that day. That aura was too shocking. I feel that Beichin's future will be beyond our imagination. Following Di Xiaofeng's words, no one present objected. In fact, everyone had the same thoughts in their hearts. Di Beichin's performance was already very shocking, but now it seemed that the situation was even more shocking than they thought. Beichin's future might be beyond their imagination. Hongzhuang, why haven't you spoken much recently? Di Xiaofeng looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in confusion. Hongzhuang had always been the most concerned about Beichin, but these days Hongzhuang seemed to be particularly quiet. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. I just feel that this matter is very mysterious. It seems like I've vaguely touched on something, but I can't understand it. How do you feel? Di Yujue turned to look at Bailey Hongzhuang. He clearly remembered her performance that day. Originally, when he knew that Beichin and Hongzhuang's blood could turn golden after fusing, he already felt that it was very magical. Now, it seemed that there were still some things that they did not think of. Ever since the two of them had joined forces, the compatibility they had shown had already exceeded expectations. Even in the land of heritage, Hongzhuang's performance was different from ordinary people. It was obvious that there must be a reason for this. I feel that the aura emitted by Beichin that day is somewhat similar to the aura I felt at the Statue of Darkness. Bailey Hongzhuang pondered and said, but it's a little different, but the feeling of power is the same. It's really amazing. Statue of Darkness? Di Xiaofeng was slightly startled. I've never been to the Statue of Darkness, but after you mentioned it, I feel that it's really possible. He did not have the darkness attribute, and when he was in the ancient battlefield, he only felt the aura of the Statue of Light. Originally, he did not think in this direction at all, but after Hongzhuang's reminder, he felt that the powerful and terrifying aura was comparable to no other power except for the Statue of Light. Statue of Darkness, Land of Heritage. Chapter 62-78. Forget it. Even if we rack our brains here, I'm afraid we won't be able to come up with an answer. When Beichin comes out, perhaps we'll understand everything. Dujus sighed at first, then a smile appeared on his face. Even if he couldn't enter the land of inheritance, when Beichin comes out, they would have a better understanding of it. For the rest of the time, everyone waited quietly outside. Bailey Hongzhuang was immersed in cultivation every day. To her, she had long been used to the long hours of cultivation. She didn't find it boring at all. During this period of time, everyone had also discovered the benefits of the devouring spirit stone. Usually, everyone's cultivation was constantly increasing, but their mental energy was only passively increasing. After cultivating to a certain level, the lag in mental energy would actually affect one's strength. However, even if everyone had discovered this problem, there was no way to improve it. Now that they had the devouring spirit stone, everyone's strength increased even faster. Hongzhuang, I heard that the family head and old family head have broken through again. Bailey Yunyan brought some food over. When she saw Bailey Hongzhuang, she couldn't help but speak. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. So father's cultivation was actually hindered by mental energy. This is great. Isn't that so? Bailey Yunyan was full of smiles. Recently, the entire family has been jubilant. Everyone has been praising the miraculous effects of the treasures you brought back. The family head's strength was linked to the family's influence. Di Linxian and Di Yujua's strength had increased, so the Di family's position would be more stable. The devouring spirit stone is indeed a good thing. With such an effect, we're all very happy. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but recall what Fong Qing had said. According to him, because the people of the immortal domain had closed the entrance to the immortal domain, there were more and more cultivators in the immortal domain. Under such circumstances, even the difficulty of ascension had become much greater than before. When this was first mentioned, she didn't pay too much attention to it. However, now that she thought about it carefully, would it be more difficult to ascend to the immortal domain because of this change? Whether it was her father or grandfather, they were all very powerful, although there was still a slight gap between them and Shu Yu. According to normal circumstances, as long as they had a certain understanding of the laws of heaven and earth, they wouldn't be too far away from ascension. Now, it was unknown if the entrance to the immortal domain had been closed, so there didn't seem to be many people from the immortal domain to ascend. Could this be related to mental energy? Shu Yu's answer, Shu Tesses to say, chooses to the immortal domain's situation. Shu estes, naturally Shu estes t tell her. This matter it tst understand, to understand. T test now. Her biggest concern was Di Beichen. When they went in, Beichen's condition was too strange. Even if everyone thought that there wouldn't be any danger, she still wanted to stay here and understand the situation as soon as possible. Chapter 62-79. Keep it. Bailey Hongzhuang was slightly taken aback. I remember that I brought a portion of it to grandfather's house back then. Now that you mention it, it's funny. Bailey Union's face was full of smiles. Back then, grandfather wanted to give the devouring spirit stone to grandfather, saying that there was a treasure that grandfather had never seen before to give to him to broaden his horizons. You also know that grandfather and grandfather have always liked to bicker, so when grandfather heard this, he thought that grandfather was showing off and threatened not to take it. Grandfather didn't persuade him, and only said that he would come back to take it when grandfather wanted it. So it was delayed until now. Bailey Hongzhuang was surprised. It had already been more than a month. Coincidentally, he was busy with Mai Xiaofeng's marriage, so grandfather didn't take it to heart. Only when he heard that grandfather had broken through recently did grandfather come over. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled slightly. Then there's going to be a show to watch today. Isn't that so? Xiaofeng said that there's no need to worry about a fight, because grandfather's strength is now stronger than grandfather's. In the blink of an eye, a month had passed. Beichen has also been in the land of heritage for a month, and he hasn't come out yet. Could it be that there's an incredible inheritance here? So, just learning it takes a long time? Shanghua and Ying looked curiously at the tightly shut door of the land of heritage. At their level, it was not unusual for them to go into seclusion for 3 to 5 years. Maybe this land of heritage has been here for at least 1,000 years. For a destined person to appear after so many years, the inheritance must be incredible. Zyra nodded. If that's really the case, then when Beichun comes out of seclusion, his strength will definitely be astonishing. Bali Yenche's eyes were filled with excitement. Although their cultivation would definitely not be as good as Di Beichun's, if Di Beichun's strength increased, then they would have more confidence when they went to the immortal region. Just as everyone was thinking, suddenly, an aura came from the land of heritage. Sensing this aura, everyone's expression changed. They looked forward expectantly, wondering if Di Beichun was about to come out. The door to the land of heritage slowly opened, and a tall and straight figure appeared in everyone's line of sight. Beichun, Bailey Hongzhuang quickly ran over. Wife. The moment Di Beichun saw Bailey Hongzhuang's figure, a smile appeared on his face. Standing in front of Di Beichun and looking at the familiar smile on his face and the emotions in his eyes, Bailey Hongzhuang was completely relieved. Even now, she could still clearly remember the coldness on Beichun's face that day. Fortunately, it was only temporary. Beichun, how is the land of heritage? Everyone rushed over and looked at Di Beichun curiously. Is the inheritance inside very powerful? What happened when you went in that day? It's just too shocking. Faced with one question after another from the crowd, Di Beichun shook his head helplessly, then said, "How long have I been in there?" "Not long, only a month," Bali Yenche replied. A month? Di Beichun was slightly startled. I've been in there for a month? Looking at Di Beichun's stunned expression, everyone was somewhat puzzled. What's wrong? Could it be that you felt time fly by in there? Chapter 6280. Following Di Beichun's words, everyone was stunned. Their eyes were filled with astonishment. It can't be? Did you just take a nap in there? Yes. Di Beichun nodded affirmatively. Actually, I don't know what happened. I only remember that I placed the secret key on the door. As for what happened after that, I don't remember. Seeing this, everyone looked at each other. This situation was clearly beyond their expectations. During this period of time, they had been thinking that Di Beichun must have received an incredible inheritance in the land of heritage. Who would have thought that the result would be like this? This is too strange. You went in with such a shocking lineup, but in the end, you only went in to sleep. This is too unbelievable. Shangguan Yingying sighed. Bailey Hongzhuang asked, Beichun, did you not feel anything different during the entire process? Then how did you get out? I only slept deeply for a while. Something seemed to have happened, but I can't remember it clearly. When I woke up, I was already standing in front of the door. The moment I came out, I saw all of you. However, there was one thought in my mind, and that was that I must gather the 3 secret keys before returning here. Hearing this, everyone understood. It seems that we still need to gather the 3 secret keys before we can receive the true inheritance in the land of heritage. However, since you entered the land of heritage, I believe that you must have gained something. It's just that you don't remember it. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. It was impossible for the land of inheritance to inexplicably suck people in. What's more, just this deep sleep was already a problem. If nothing had happened, Beichun would definitely not have slept for so long. Di Beichun nodded slightly. Perhaps so. Beichun, has your strength increased? Mo Yunjue suddenly asked. Probably not. Di Beichun shook his head, but in the next second, his expression changed slightly. His deep and bright eyes gradually revealed a layer of surprise. How could this be? Seeing this, everyone stopped in their tracks and looked at Di Beichun curiously. Did you improve? My cultivation has indeed improved, said Di Beichun. I've broken through to the initial sun stage. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone's expression froze. Then, their faces were filled with joy. Starting Sun Realm? Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curved into a happy smile. That's a lot of improvement. She and Beichun were originally at the 5th level of the Heavenly Moon Realm, but Beichun had broken through to the initial Sun Realm. This was a huge leap. Beichun, your luck is so good that it makes people jealous. When Ziren shook his head ruefully, you only went into sleep, and your cultivation increased by so much. You're attracting too much hatred. He had been desperately cultivating every day, but the gap between him and Beichun was still widening little by little. If he and Yingying had not obtained the inheritance previously and closed the gap between their strengths, he would have been left far behind by Beichun. Everyone nodded ruefully. In the past, perhaps they did not have a clear definition of a god's favored child, but ever since they met Beichun, they clearly understood what a true god's favored child was. Chapter 6281. Seeing when Ziren's helpless look, Di Beichun reached out and patted him on the shoulder. There was a faint trace of sympathy in his expression. Haven't you already gotten used to being number 2 for a long time? Beichun, you've gone too far. Ziren was speechless. Had this fellow forgotten what modesty was? I haven't finished speaking. Why are you running away? Di Beichun ignored Ziren's ridicule and pulled Bailey Hongzhuang's hand as they walked towards the clan. Mo Yunjue and the rest shook their heads. Ziren had always been defeated by Beichun. This was something that would never change in this lifetime. After returning to the clan, Di Beichun immediately went to look for Di Yujue. His entry into the land of heritage had attracted the attention of the entire clan. Now that he had come out, he naturally had to go back and give an explanation. However, when Di Beichun arrived, he found that the place was unusually lively. Old man Di, I think you're hiding it from me on purpose so that you can take the opportunity to cultivate and surpass me. Lin Wenlong looked at Di Lin Xian in dissatisfaction. He never thought that Di Lin Xian would give him such a good treasure. If he had known this earlier, he would never have thrown a tantrum and refused. However, he knew very well that Old Man D had done it on purpose. Their cultivations had always been about the same, but now, Old Man D had directly surpassed him. At that time, I gave it to you out of goodwill. You were the one who didn't want it, and now you're blaming me. Old Man Lin, the older you get, the more shameless you become. D. Lin Xian's face was calm, and there was a hint of complacency in his eyes. You're the shameless one, Lin Wenlan said angrily. I've known you for so many years. How could I not know what kind of person you are? Don't say those useless things. I didn't say that I wouldn't give it to you. Do you want to fight with me now? D. Lin Xian looked at Lin Wenlan proudly and rolled up his sleeves. Clearly, he was prepared to accompany her to the end. Hearing this, Lin Wenlan's face turned even redder. Wasn't this enough to prove that this old man did it on purpose? Usually, the two of them were not afraid of each other. Now that this old man was 2 realms higher than him, how could he fight? When Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang arrived and saw this scene, they couldn't help but laugh. Yin was right. Today was going to be a chaotic day. The older one got, the more childish their temperament became. This saying was not wrong at all. Di Yujue helplessly watched the routine bickering between the 2 elders. At this time, he did not dare to interrupt. Once he became the spearhead, the anger of the 2 elders would definitely be directed at him. Thinking back to the years when Beichon hadn't returned, he had been scolded to the point that he didn't even dare to stay in the clan. Beichon, you're out? Suddenly, Yujie noticed Di Beichon, who had just walked in. His eyes lit up and filled with joy. Following Di Yujue's words, everyone turned to look at Di Beichen. Their eyes were filled with joy. This is faster than we expected. We thought that you would have to stay in there for at least 3 months to half a year. Di Lin Xian and Lin Wenlan stopped bickering and turned their attention to Di Beichen. Chapter 62-82. Facing everyone's expectant gazes, Di Beichen spread out his hands and said, Actually, I just took a nap in there and came out after that. There was complete silence. Di Yujue and the others looked at Di Beichen in a daze, wondering if he was deliberately making up a joke to tease them. It's true. Noticing everyone's expression, Di Beichen emphasized, there's only one message inside, and that's that we have to find all 3 keys. Hearing this, everyone came to a realization, and a look of regret appeared on their faces at the same time. If that's the case, we have to find a way to find all the keys. I'm afraid only Xiao Sowen knows where the keys are. Di Lin Xian's expression turned serious. Originally, it was not difficult to accept not opening the Land of Heritage, but now that Di Beichen was a rare destined person, it would be a real pity if he did not open the Land of Heritage. Now that I think about it, it's a good thing that Xiao So and Xiao Sudong ran away back then. If they had also died back then, we wouldn't have any clues to find the keys now. Di Yujue smiled faintly. Although this matter had changed quite a bit, there was still a glimmer of hope in the end. Perhaps this was also a kind of fate. The originally heavy atmosphere became relaxed with Di Yujue's words. Indeed, compared to the worst-case scenario, they at least had a glimmer of hope. Shu Yu is the #1 expert in the upper realm. With him protecting Xiao So, it won't be easy for us to do anything. Lin Wenlan was not too optimistic. This matter was very troublesome in itself. If they could not think of a way, they could only watch helplessly. Shu Yu is indeed the #1 expert, but the speed at which our strength has been increasing recently is also not bad. Perhaps it won't be long before we can surpass Shu Yu. Di Lin Xian's eyes were filled with confidence, and his deep voice was filled with determination. In the past, the speed at which his strength was increasing had never been slow, but later on, for some reason, the speed of his breakthrough became very slow. Even though he had been in seclusion, he was still unable to make any progress. However, after breaking through recently, he found that the speed of his improvement had returned to the past. It was because of this that he felt that his recent condition was better than ever. In the past, he felt that Shu Yu was difficult to deal with, but now he had confidence. Seeing how confident Di Lin Xian was, Lin Wenlan didn't argue with him. During this period of time, even he was surprised by Di Lin Xuan's improvement. If this continued, it wasn't impossible for him to defeat Shu Yu. It was only a matter of time. Although Di Beichun didn't know how much Di Lin Xian's cultivation had increased, he knew that the situation wasn't as bad as they thought. Actually, he had never paid much attention to Shu Yu, because his gaze had always been on the immortal domain. Even if Shu Yu was a genius, he had only arrived at the crossing immortal domain and had yet to truly enter the immortal domain. As long as they were given enough time, their strength would definitely surpass Shu Yu's. I'll send someone to keep an eye on Xiao So during this period of time, so that she won't have a chance to escape. As soon as we have the confidence, we'll make our move. A cold light flashed across Di Lin Xian's eyes. Xiao Yanlong and Jun Hongcheng wanted to leave the Di family with an eternal regret. He wouldn't let them have their way. Apart from that, I've noticed that there's an extra mark on my hand. Chapter 6283. The black totem was like a burning flame. It was clearly still, but for some reason, it looked like it was burning. It carried a mysterious and unique power. He had not noticed the totem at first, but when he reached out to hold Hong Zhuang's hand, he realized that there was an additional totem on his palm. He tried to use his mental strength to touch the totem, but there was no reaction at all. It seemed that there was nothing special about it other than a mark on his palm. However, Di Beichun did not think that it was just a mark. In fact, no one would think that it was a simple mark at first glance. Let me see. Di Yujue quickly walked to Di Beichun's side. When he saw the mark on his hand, his eyes were filled with shock. Di Lin Xian and the others also quickly walked over and carefully examined the totem in Di Beichun's hand. This totem was obtained in the land of heritage. It's definitely not simple. Di Yujue's eyes were filled with fear. When he first saw the totem, he actually felt a terrifying power. This feeling was similar to when he saw Di Beichun rise into the air that day. It was mysterious, powerful, and detached from everything. I think I've seen this totem somewhere before. Di Linxian frowned, and his eyes were filled with thoughts. Hearing this, everyone's eyes lit up. Grandfather, think about it carefully. I think I've also seen this fire totem in an ancient book in the family. It's been a long time. The reason why I remember it is because this totem is very special. It leaves a deep impression on me at first glance. Di Linxian smiled. I used to think that these were all illusory legends. I never thought that they would come true one after another. Everyone, please calm down. I'll go back and look for it later. I'll see if I can find anything about this totem. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others did not expect that the ancient books passed down in the Di family would have records about it. However, this was good news for them. Beichun, I feel that you are becoming more and more mysterious. Di Xiaofeng smiled faintly. I've always heard that our family has a very powerful inheritance. In the past, every cultivator who opened the land of inheritance had achievements that far surpassed ordinary cultivators. Right now, you are also someone destined to be here. Who knows? Maybe something incredible will happen. Maybe you can become someone from the immortal realms. Di Xiaofeng couldn't help but feel happy for Di Beichun as his dark and bright eyes flashed with dazzling light. Even though he had yet to obtain the other two keys, he believed that the other two keys would fall into their hands sooner or later. Big brother, it's not just me. We will all become people of the immortal region. Di Beichun's lips curled into a warm smile. Believe me, it's only a matter of time. With their current situation, they were indeed still some distance away from entering the celestial realm, but this was only a matter of time. Once they broke through to the radiant sun stage, they would be able to enter the chaotic immortal realm. Although this was a very risky choice, it was not impossible to find a way out. Chapter 6284. After returning to the house, Di Beichun carefully examined the totem in his hand and carefully thought about his memories of this totem. However, no matter how hard he thought, he could not think of any relevant information. The only thing he remembered was that he had to gather the 3 secret keys. Perhaps when he gathered the 3 secret keys and entered the land of inheritance, he would be able to find out the connection. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Di Beichun's serious expression and handed him a cup of tea. The family's land of inheritance really feels more and more mysterious now. Yes, Di Beichun took a sip of tea and smiled. Perhaps in the future, we will discover that our family is not ordinary at all. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and shook her head when she saw Di Beichen's words getting more and more off-topic. Beichen's ability to fabricate nonsense was also very shocking. No matter what, we have come into contact with some situations now. Although we are unable to gather the secret keys for the time being, I believe that it will eventually fall into our hands. Di Beichen's handsome eyes were brimming with confidence. He said calmly, I have already broken through to the initial sun stage. When we search for the secret on the treasure map, we will have a little more confidence. That's true. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes lit up. Now that the land of inheritance could only be temporarily set aside, it was a good time to search for the treasure. No matter what mysterious place the map fragment pointed to, it was definitely not simple. If they could obtain some opportunities from it, it would undoubtedly be best. For 2 consecutive days, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others did not see Di Yujue and Di Linxian. According to Xiao Wanrong, the two of them had already plunged into the family's library and would probably not come out until they finished reading the ancient books. On the 3rd day, Di Linxian and Di Yujue finally appeared. However, both of them looked very regretful. We have flipped through the ancient books and indeed found this totem. Di Yujue sighed. It's a pity that there's only this totem in the ancient books. There's nothing else. Indeed, all the ancient books have been flipped through. The only thing I know is that this totem has something to do with the establishment of our family. But because too much time has passed, many of the records have been lost. Di Linxian couldn't help but feel regretful. Even though the family had been carefully protecting the ancient books all these years, it was inevitable that some of them would be lost after so many years. What a pity. Lin Yunxing sighed inwardly. Then can we only find out when we open the land of heritage? That should be the case. Di Beichen felt that it was a pity when he heard the news, but he quickly recovered. Since this totem has appeared, we will know its true meaning sooner or later. Everyone nodded. That was the only thing they could do. After deciding to put this matter aside for the time being, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others decided to set off to find the location of the treasure map. With their current cultivation bases, they could only stay in the abandoned immortal forest if they went to the upper realm. They could not go anywhere else. Moreover, if they went to the abandoned immortal forest now, no one knew if they would run into trouble again. Since that was the case, they might as well stay in the upper realm for the time being and raise their strength in peace. Father, Mother, Bei-chun and I plan to go out and train. Chapter 62-85. You little fellows really can't stay idle. You just come out of seclusion and you're already planning to go out and train. Mu Lingbing's voice was filled with helplessness, but her eyes were filled with heartache. You're a girl. Don't tire yourself out by working so hard every day. Reaching out to comb Bailey Hongzhuang's soft, shiny hair, Mu Lingbing gently said, The dark assembly has been established and you're the holy maiden of light. There's no one in the entire upper realm who can compare to you. Why tire yourself out? Bailey Hongzhuang's heart warmed. Only her family cared about whether she was tired or not. Mother, I know you're worried about me, but I don't think it's hard. A bright smile spread across her exquisite face, and her strong confidence made her even more dazzling. On the contrary, I like this kind of life very much. In the Qianbui Kingdom, she had no choice but to work hard to become stronger in order to change her situation. But in reality, the desire to become stronger had already taken root in her heart since her previous life. Although she needed to put in a lot of effort to improve her cultivation, she had gained a lot along the way. For the sake of her family and herself, she didn't want to stop moving forward. Lingbing, don't worry. Lan Yinxiao smiled. Our daughter isn't the type to obediently stay at home to take care of her husband and children. This kind of life is more suitable for her. In any case, we're still young. Why don't we let her go out and experience the world? Father is right. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Looking at the two smiling faces, Mu Lingbing couldn't help but smile. She waved her hand and said, Forget it. I can't win against you. I don't object to going out to train, but you must return safely. I promise. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was serious, but the slight twitch of her lips revealed her emotions. Hongzhuang, your mother is right. You must be careful when you go out. Lan Yinxiao seriously reminded her. As for us, You don't have to worry. Just go without worry. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and nodded. If there's anything you need, just tell me directly. We've been here for a long time. We're already used to it. Lan Yinshao waved his hand, his eyes filled with affection. That's good. Di Beichen also told his family about this idea. Di Yujue and the others also did not object. They all knew that Beichen and the others already had their own ideas. Just by looking at this map fragment, they knew that it wasn't simple. Since they were so fated, they naturally had to take a look. However, when Di Beichen and the others were about to set off, they unexpectedly saw Di Xiaofeng and Bailey Yunyan. Big brother, Yunyan, what are you doing? Di Xiaofeng smiled faintly. Beichun, do you mind if we go with you? Di Beichun was a little surprised. If you're willing to go, I'm naturally happy. But have you told everyone about this? When this matter was mentioned earlier, Di Xiaofeng had never mentioned that he was going. Now that he suddenly said that he was going, it was really beyond their expectations. I did. Di Xiaofeng nodded. Originally, everyone always said that I like to run around. But ever since you came, they stopped saying that. You're the one who likes to run around. I've already discussed it with my grandfather. Right now, I don't need to deal with the family's matters, so I still have enough time to go out and explore. Chapter 6286. Hearing Di Xiaofeng's words, everyone nodded. Now that the Di family and the Lin family were doing well, they believed that there wouldn't be any problems for a long time to come. Grandfather was still strong and could take care of the family matters. Therefore, whether it was Di Xiaofeng or Di Beichun, they had a long time to continue adventuring. Of course, the most important reason is that every time you go out to train, your strength will increase very quickly. When Di Beichun first came, he was much weaker than me. Now his strength has surpassed mine. If I don't go out with you, I don't know where I will be when you come back. As the big brother, I still have to maintain some dignity. As soon as he said this, everyone chuckled. However, when they thought about it carefully, what Di Xiaofeng said did make sense. Then what are we waiting for? Let's go together. Di Beichun smiled faintly. Let's go. Everyone embarked on the path to find the incomplete map inheritance. This inheritance was very far away. Di Beichun had already studied the route before they set off. Therefore, along the way, wherever there was a teleportation formation, everyone used it to travel. When they arrived at a desolate place without a teleportation formation, they took the flying car and continued their journey. However, even using a teleportation formation to travel took a long time. The flying car flew quickly in the sky. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were cultivating in the flying car. As for the task of controlling the flying car, it was directly handed over to Xiao He and Xiao Bai. Master, there is suddenly a hurricane in front. It is difficult for the flying car to control the direction. Xiao Bai frowned as she looked at the gale in front of them. In fact, the flying car itself had a certain resistance to external forces. However, the wind speed was much more terrifying than what they usually encountered. Even if they continued to control the flying car, under the influence of the gale, their speed was too slow. Most importantly, the gale was still showing signs of intensifying. If this continued, the flying car would most likely go out of control. Di Beichen also exited his cultivation state after feeling the shaking of the flying car. He looked at the situation in front of him and frowned. Why is there such a strong wind all of a sudden? Di Xiaofeng and the others also opened their eyes. Beichun, if the wind speed continues to increase, I'm afraid it'll be difficult to control the flying car. It'll be even more dangerous. Hearing this, Di Beichun nodded slightly. Then we can only go down here. All right, everyone agreed. Rather than being blown away by the wind on the flying carriage, it would be better to find a temporary hiding place on the ground. After controlling the flying car to stop on a slope, everyone disembarked one after another. The wind is so strong that I can't even open my eyes. It's hard to even tell the direction. Shangguan Yingying stretched out her hand to block the wind in front of her. It was the first time she had seen such a terrifying wind. Fortunately, they were cultivators and had profound skills. If it was an ordinary person, they would have been blown away by the wind. I think the wind seems to be getting stronger. We have to find a place to hide as soon as possible. Otherwise, even if it's us, I'm afraid we might be blown away by the wind at any time. Mo Yunjue's face darkened. The wind was indeed a bit strange, but now was not the time to think about it. Chapter 6287. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the surrounding environment. In fact, the place where they were now was already deserted. At a glance, there was no one at all. However, according to their judgment, they were still some distance away from the location marked on the map. After all, the location marked on the map was the ocean, and they were still on land. However, if they kept moving forward, they would reach the ocean soon. As Bailey Hongzhuang's voice fell, everyone nodded their heads and began to search the area. This was a flat area. It was very empty, and even the vegetation was sparse. At a glance, it could be said to be a flat land, and one could see very far. It was in this kind of environment that the wind was so terrifying. In this kind of environment, it was obviously not easy to find a cave. However, looking at the similarly empty land behind them, everyone could only give up on the idea. Normally, no one comes here. It seems that even demonic beasts don't live here. The possibility of a natural cave is too small. Di Xiaofeng's expression was a bit ugly. He looked around, and there was no cave at all. Right now, the wind was gradually increasing. Even if he wanted to take a step forward, it was very difficult. If they didn't quickly find a place to stay, they would be directly blown away by the wind. This kind of scene, just thinking about it, was hard to believe. However, this was really the case. There are indeed no demonic beasts here. Bali Yenche's expression was serious. There was vigilance and worry between his brows. Demonic beasts were different from humans. Humans would often choose a suitable place to live together. Different demonic beasts were suitable for different places. Therefore, aside from some dead areas, there were demonic beasts everywhere. As a beast king, he was very sensitive to the aura of demonic beasts. Ever since he stood on the ground, he found that there were no demonic beasts around. This was a very rare situation. Hearing this, everyone looked at each other, and their expressions became even more serious. It seemed that the situation was more complicated than they thought. Since we can't find a cave, we'll dig one ourselves. Di Beichen's eyes flashed with determination. Since they had decided to go to the place pointed by the map fragment, they definitely couldn't give up. Although Di Beichen's idea was a bit unexpected, it was indeed the only way. For a moment, everyone no longer hesitated and began to move. They had to dig this cave before the wind became more and more terrifying. Only then could they safely pass through today. Under this terrifying wind, just standing was already a very difficult task. Digging a cave was even more difficult. With a shovel, the soil directly flew over everyone's faces. Regarding this, everyone did not stop because of this. They all sped up and began to dig the cave. When Di Xiaofeng saw that Di Beichen and the others had brought shovels, he was very surprised. Normally, who would bring a shovel when they went out training? Chapter 6288. At this moment, Bailey Yinyan also realized the gap between her and everyone else. It turned out that everyone had a way to deal with this kind of unexpected situation when they went out to train. In comparison, she had never thought of using these tools other than the weapons she had in her hands. Fortunately, this time she came with Hongzhuang and the others. If it was only her and Xiaofeng, it was completely impossible to dig a cave here with just 2 swords. Digging a cave, with Di Beichen and the others' methods, it was just a matter of minutes. However, in such a special environment, the speed was a lot slower. However, in the end, everyone succeeded in digging a cave and hid in it. After entering the cave, Xiao Xuanzi didn't stop, but continued to dig the cave a little wider. In this way, everyone could stay in the cave more comfortably. Everyone found a place to sit on the ground in the cave. Without the terrible wind, everyone felt comfortable. Beichun, I really admire you guys. Everyone has a shovel when going out to train. You really opened my eyes. Di Xiaofeng looked at Di Beichun and the others with a smile. As expected of a team, the shovels looked the same. Presumably, everyone bought them together. Listening to Di Xiaofeng's words, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others looked at each other and couldn't help but laugh. This shovel didn't come from anywhere else. It was brought out from the spirit devouring mine. When they were mining, They found that this shovel was extremely sharp, sharper than a weapon. The things in the immortal domain were of the highest quality. In addition, the spirit devouring or was very hard. The shovel was also made of a special material. Therefore, before they left, they took the shovel with them. Who would have thought that it would be used in this kind of situation? In the future, Xiaofeng and I have to prepare more things before we go out. Who knows when it will be useful? Bailey Union's face was full of novelty. In the past, she stayed in the family most of the time and didn't have many opportunities to go out to train. Because with their cultivation, going out to train was really dangerous, so unless it was a large-scale training event, the family's disciples would participate together. This was the first time she tried to go out with a small group. However, it was also because she had never experienced it before that she felt that everything was so interesting. It turned out that going out to train actually required so many things to prepare. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others smiled, but did not say anything. Mining was not a glorious past. It seems to be getting colder here. Bailey Yunyin couldn't help but curl up her body. In fact, she had felt that this place was very cold from the beginning. But now, it seemed to be getting colder and colder. Let's start a fire, Bailey Hongzhuang said. She had also noticed the change in the environment. But here, if there was nothing, how could he start a fire? Before Bailey Yunyin could finish her words, she saw Bailey Hongzhuang take out firewood and pile it up. While she was in a daze, the fire had already started to burn. In the face of Di Beichun and the others' calm and habitual appearance, Bailey Yunyin sighed. I never thought that we would have to prepare firewood when we go out for training. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression changed slightly. She smiled faintly and said, I happen to have one. Chapter 6289. I really learned something new. Di Xiaofeng deeply reprimanded himself. He thought that he had a lot of experience in the outside world, but now he felt that his little bit of experience was really not worth mentioning. I finally understand why you guys have such great gains every time you train. No matter where you are, other people's preparations are definitely not as comprehensive as yours. Seeing Di Xiaofeng's serious expression, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others looked at each other and felt a little amused. To be honest, if it weren't for the things they had to do in the abandoned immortal forest, they wouldn't have these things in their Chinquan bags. However, thinking about it carefully, it was true that no matter what kind of experience it was, it could be of great help to them. Some things that you think are unremarkable often play a big role in some special situations. When the twilight came, the earth was plunged into darkness. The fire in the cave became the only source of light in this silent night. There are no demonic beasts around here, so we don't have to worry about being attacked by demonic beasts at night. Bali Yin Che looked around. However, it might not be a good thing that there are no demonic beasts around here. Hearing that, everyone nodded. A place without demonic beasts was very strange in itself. There must be some reason for it. Yin Che, Ling Xiao Xuanzi, do you know why there are no demonic beasts here? Bailey Hongzhuang turned her gaze to the three of them. Although Xiao He and Xiao Bai were demonic beasts, they were strange creatures created by the dark Holy Sun and Holy Maiden of Light. There is a certain difference between them and demonic beasts. I didn't discover anything. Xiao Xuanzi shook his head. However, it should be related to the harsh living environment here. In terms of the laws of heaven and earth in the upper realm, their current cultivation was already considered very good. However, they still had to be on guard against the possibility of being blown away at any time. Even if demonic beasts were larger in size, they could still be blown away if they weren't strong enough. That's right. Di Beichun's expression darkened. No wonder there are so few people in this place. The wind itself is already very strange. In addition, the temperature is getting colder and colder. It's indeed not suitable for living. It was not yet late at night, but the temperature was already abnormally cold. If not for the essence energy protecting their bodies, most likely everyone would have frozen to death here after one night. Bailey Hongzhuang added more firewood into the fire. Everyone unconsciously moved closer to the fire. They had not felt this cold for a long time. Normally, with our cultivation, even if the weather turns cold, we won't feel too cold. But this time, it feels like we've returned to our childhood and can only rely on clothes to keep out the cold. Di Xiaofeng looked at the environment outside. The night was dark and thick. Other than the light from the fire, he couldn't see anything else. This place is indeed very strange. Listening to the sound of the wind, the gale hasn't stopped yet. I'm afraid we'll have to wait for the gale to die down, or even stop before we can leave. Mo Yunjue's gaze was complicated. This place was truly mysterious. I wonder how the person who drew this map came to such a strange place. Chapter 6290. Perhaps this person likes to explore. This place is so strange, so it's not surprising that there are fortuitous encounters inside. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. If she didn't have the map fragment, she would also be very interested in this place. Whether it was the weather or the absence of demonic beasts, all these signs indicated that the situation here was very special. Going deep into the hinterland, perhaps they would have a chance to figure out all the grievances. Big brother, have you heard of this place before? Di Beichun turned around. Among them, Di Xiaofeng was the one who understood the environment of the upper realm the best. Di Xiaofeng shook his head. No, actually the upper realm is very large. There are many places that are deserted and no one would come here. If it weren't for this map, I might not have come to such a place in my life. Di Beichun understood. Indeed, if it wasn't for a purpose, ordinary people wouldn't think of coming to such a remote and desolate place. The next day, after dawn, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others found that the wind was still howling outside, and the wind speed was even more terrifying than yesterday. Therefore, everyone could only stay in the cave for 3 days until the wind gradually died down, and then they walked out of the cave. Looking at the plain in front of them, everyone's mood was very complicated. Di Beichun said, "Now that the wind has stopped, let's continue forward." Everyone nodded. This place wasn't very far from the sea area marked on the map. In addition, the environment here was strange, and no one knew if they would encounter any danger later, so they didn't continue to ride the flying car. Although the flying car was fast, once a crisis occurred, their reaction speed would be slowed down, and it would be unsafe. It was a sunny day without the slightest breeze. The sun scorched the earth, and sweat unconsciously soaked the back of their clothes. This is really strange weather. 2 nights ago, it was so cold that we almost froze to death, and now it's so hot. It's like ice and fire at the same time. Shangguan Yingying wiped the sweat on her neck, and her face was full of disbelief. She still clearly remembered that she had been complaining about not bringing any warm clothes at night. This time, she only felt that she was wearing too much. This place is indeed very strange. No wonder there are no demonic beasts living here. Otherwise, how could the demonic beasts endure such a constantly changing world? At this moment, Xiren finally understood. No matter if it was a hot place or a cold place, there would be demonic beasts living there. This was because demonic beasts themselves were resistant to heat and cold. However, this place was hot and cold at the same time. Unless the demonic beasts could withstand the 2 extremes of weather, it was simply torture to survive here. Indeed, there are very few demonic beasts that can adapt to the cold and heat. However, it's not like there are none. Bai Li Yin Che's eyes darkened. Actually, there are such places in the world. I know of a kind of demon beast that can adapt to these 2 environments. Such an environment was rare, but for such a demonic beast, if they could find such an environment, it would be a great thing for them. However, there are no demonic beasts auras here at all. I'm afraid there are other strange places. As Bai Li Yin Che's voice fell, everyone looked at each other. These words meant that this place was even stranger than they thought. There shouldn't be any more problems, right? Chapter 6291. Just as Xiren finished speaking, the scorching sun was suddenly shrouded by clouds. In the blink of an eye, it began to rain heavily. No way. Xiren was dumbfounded. It's so strange. The weather is changing too quickly. In the blink of an eye, everyone was drenched by the rain. The rain was getting heavier and heavier. Everyone could only use their hands to block the rain in front of their eyes. Only then could they vaguely see their surroundings. The rain is too heavy. I'm afraid we have to find a place to stay. What did you say? Shangguan Yingying asked loudly. Swish, swish, swish. The sound of raindrops falling on the ground became louder and louder. Even the words of the people around them were almost inaudible. I said we have to find a place to take shelter from the rain, when Zyron also shouted at the top of his voice. They were in a flat area, and the rain was so heavy. If they continued to move forward, it would be easy to get lost. Most importantly, there were not many plants here. The soil could collapse under the erosion of the rain. The rain had blurred their vision. They could not find a place to stay. Debachin could only rely on his memory of the previous situation to try to find a place to stay. In the current environment, there was no place with high terrain. Even if they found a cave, it would quickly be filled with rain. I remember there are trees over there. Let's go there first, Debachin said. Okay. Everyone followed behind Debachin and slowly walked forward. The speed of the torrential rain was terrible. In just a short time, the rain had reached everyone's ankles. Fortunately, they found a few trees. With a leap, everyone jumped onto a tree. Debachin took out a few canvases to cover the top of the tree. This way, the rain would not get to them. Shangwan Ying wiped the rain on her face and wrung the heavy corners of her clothes dry. Looking at the rapidly accumulating rain below, there was only helplessness in her eyes. What kind of strange weather is this? If I had known earlier, I definitely wouldn't have complained about the hot weather. This feeling of being a drowned rat is obviously more depressing than the scorching summer. Hearing this, everyone nodded helplessly. This situation had exceeded all of their expectations, and it was not something they wanted to see. Looking at the situation, I'm afraid we'll have to spend the night on this tree. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the sky. It was obvious that the rain would not stop for a while. However, such a changeable weather made her understand the reason why the demonic beasts were unwilling to live here. Yin Shay, the demonic beasts, must not be able to adapt to such an environment. Just based on the situation we're in right now, the demonic beasts that want to live here must not only be able to withstand heat and cold, they must also be good at swimming. I don't know what will happen next. If a demonic beast can really live here, then it would be an all-round demonic beast. Indeed, Bailey Yin Shay nodded. Thinking about it, we're already in such a sorry state here. Ordinary demonic beasts definitely wouldn't be able to withstand such an environment. This place is really amazing. Bailey Yin was not as annoyed as everyone else. On the contrary, she felt that everything was very novel. Such a special place. If she hadn't come with everyone this time, she was afraid that she would never have known that there were some places that were so special. Chapter 6292. I never knew that there were so many special places in this world. Bailey Yin smiled. Whether it was the terrifying wind from before or the shocking rain now, everything was interesting to her. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but laugh. Yin, although some strange things happen when you train in other places, this kind of place is really rare. I suddenly remembered something from a long time ago. Di Xiao Feng frowned as his thoughts drifted far away. What is it? Debachin raised his eyebrows. This place is very likely to be that ghost city. Di Xiaofeng's eyes suddenly lit up as a deep shock appeared in his eyes. Ghost city? Everyone was startled as they looked at Di Xiaofeng in astonishment. This was the first time they heard of this term. Di Xiaofeng nodded slightly. The ghost city I'm talking about isn't Ghost City, but Ghost City as in Ghost City. When I went out to train again, I heard people talk about a place that sometimes appears and sometimes disappears. Even if you've seen it before, you might not be able to see it the next time you go. At that time, I heard from an old man that he was very poor. That day, I was drinking tea at a tea shop, and he came to ask me for a drink. I pitied him and invited him to drink a cup of tea. This is what he told me. He said that he had been to a mysterious place. That place was close to the sea and was extremely remote with few people. Moreover, the weather there was very changeable. Sometimes it was sunny and sometimes it was raining heavily. The deeper you went, the less useful your strength would be. He felt that this place was very mysterious and there must be some incredible treasure inside. However, with his strength, he couldn't go to the bottom. Therefore, he went back and told his family about this, wanting to bring everyone to explore. However, when he went to that place again, he found that it no longer existed. At that time, everyone thought that he was crazy and imagined such a strange place. No matter how he explained it to others, they ignored him. After a long time, everyone thought that he was crazy. However, he always believed that what he saw was real. Unfortunately, after so many years, he never found this place again. The more Di Xiaofeng spoke, the more surprised he became. When I heard this old man speak, I also thought he was telling a story because I've never heard of such a place before. Even when I came here earlier, I didn't connect the two things together. It wasn't until after the rain that I suddenly realized that the place where it might be the place that the old man was talking about. Facing Di Xiaofeng's doubtful gaze, everyone was shocked. From the looks of it, there's a high chance that the old man came to this place. I just didn't expect this place to disappear. Di Beichen's face was dignified, and his handsome eyes were full of thoughts. His thoughts were somewhat similar to that of the old man. There must be something special about this place. Otherwise, such a changeable environment would be too unreasonable. Eerie Town. Bailey Hongzhuang muttered these two words. Suddenly, she chuckled. This name is really fitting. Everything about it is eerie. Chapter 6293. Ying, this skeleton army is already Beichen's subordinates. You weren't afraid when you first saw the skeletons. What's there to be worried about now? Ziren did not seem to care. However, he still hugged Shangguan, Ying with his arm, to give her a sense of security. I'm not afraid of the skeletons now. I'm just afraid that something strange will appear. Shangguan, Ying touched her arm. Anyway, this environment is really strange. Do you think this is the place that the map pointed us to? Or do we just happen to come across this crafty city on our way here? Everyone looked at each other. There was a trace of doubt in their eyes. I don't know. However, since we've already come across it, let's see what's strange about this place, Di Beichen said in a deep voice. Mo Yunjue's eyes also showed a trace of interest. This place is so hard to find. That old man spent so much time and still couldn't find this place. Since we come across it, it's also a kind of luck. Although we can't be sure what's strange about this place, it's not bad for us to learn more about it. There were people who planned to go to the Immortal Region. The Upper Realm was a plane that was one level lower than the Immortal Region. If they did not even dare to explore this place, why would they go to the chaotic Immortal Region? Bailey Hongzhuang also nodded. Although the change in the weather is very difficult to deal with, it's also an interesting experience. Let's see what's going to happen next. As if she was affected by everyone's emotions, Shangguan Ying also waved away the trace of worry in her heart. A smile appeared on her face again. It's indeed interesting when you think about it. All of you are famous people in the upper realm. Now you have to hide in this tree to avoid the rain. If other people knew about this, I'm afraid they wouldn't dare to believe it. As soon as she said this, everyone chuckled. It was obviously such a bad environment. However, because everyone was gathered here, they felt that it was very interesting. The rain was just as everyone expected. It would not stop for a while. The rain almost turned into a river. Fortunately, the tree that everyone was hiding in was very tall. Even if there was a river below, it would not affect them much. It was not until the afternoon of the second day that the rain stopped. The sky looked as if it had been washed, and it was a clear blue. Looking at the blue sky, everyone felt happy. The rain has finally stopped. I'm glad that I learned how to swim. Otherwise, I wouldn't know where to run to if the water overflowed. When Ziren shook his head and sighed, after the rain stopped, he felt relieved. The ground is covered with water. It won't disappear in a short time. Bailey Yunyin looked down at the water below. For more than a day, the water level had been rising. Previously, it was only knee-deep, but now it was already half a person's height. It's fine. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. A ship immediately appeared in everyone's line of sight. In the past, when they were training in the ocean world, this ship had always been with them, and she had always kept it well. He hadn't used it for quite some time now, but he didn't expect it to come in handy again. Chapter 6294. The water level will gradually decrease, but before that, let's row the boat and move forward. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly, her figure leaping onto the boat. Di Beichen and the rest did not waste any time and sat on the boat. The boat moved forward smoothly, and its speed was not slow at all compared to when they were traveling. However, everything was just as Bailey Hongzhuang had predicted. The river receded very quickly, and it only took half a day for the water to disappear. Everyone began to move forward on foot again. When they saw that the ground in front of them was still flat, they were no longer confused. In such a harsh living environment, it was not easy for a few trees to survive. As they got closer to the front, they became more certain that this was the place where the old man came from. This was because the closer they got, the more they felt that the effect of their primary energy was gradually disappearing. This feeling undoubtedly made everyone panic. Ever since they embarked on the path of cultivation, the effect of their primary energy had always been reflected in their daily lives, and everyone was already used to the various magical effects of their primary energy. However, the effect of their primary energy was disappearing. They could not use their primary energy to speed up their journey, nor could they use their primary energy to protect their bodies from harm. It felt as if the more they moved forward, the more their cultivation level regressed. Step by step, they became their original selves who had never started cultivating. This feeling was very strange. Perhaps they did not notice it at the beginning, but the feeling became more obvious as they moved forward. Unknowingly, the scene of their cultivation appeared in everyone's minds. What were they doing when their cultivation levels were like this? This place is so strange. Bailey Hongzhuang broke free from her memories, and her expression turned grave. Could it be that this place we're in is an illusion? Bailey Hongzhuang frowned and looked around vigilantly. The feeling of being inexplicably immersed in her memories was very strange. If it was on a normal day, they would not be in such a state at all. Upon hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's voice, when Ziren and the rest came back to their senses. After realizing the situation from before, everyone was bewildered. If this is an illusion, then this person's means are probably more powerful than Qing devils. Di Beichen's face was full of solemnity. The environment set up by the Qing devil was very real. It was only because of some utilitarian points that they were able to crack it. However, based on what they had sensed so far, they had yet to discover the purpose of the illusory realm. If this is really an illusion, then it's too scary. Di Xiaofeng's expression became very unsightly. Normally, the size of the illusion indicates the strength of the person who created it. The more realistic the illusion, the larger the range, the more powerful the opponent would be. Along the way, the range has completely exceeded the ordinary illusion, which means that this person's strength has exceeded our imagination. Everyone's hearts sank. This place was indeed strange. That doesn't make sense, Mo Yunjua suddenly said. If this is an illusion, then its purpose is to trap people here forever. Then how did that old man leave? Chapter 6295. This is such a remote place. Normally, no one would come here. Most people wouldn't think of waiting here, right? Linga looked around. Although many experts like to live a carefree life, even experts wouldn't like the environment here. If it's not the environment, then it means that the environment here is really like this. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows slightly. After feeling less worried, she felt that this place was mysterious and strange. So there really is such a special place in this world. Seeing it once is really better than hearing about it 100 times. Everyone felt relieved. Although the environment in front of them was very bad, it was a very interesting experience to be able to explore such a magical place. If it weren't for this map, we would never have known that there was such a mysterious place in the upper realm. Shangwan Yingying smiled. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly and said in high spirits, I suddenly look forward to this inheritance even more. I wonder what kind of inheritance it is that it would be left in such an interesting place. Noticing that everyone's interest was piqued, Di Beichen's expression also relaxed. According to the location marked on the map, we should be able to reach it in a few days. That's great. Bali Yanche was happy. The weather here can change at any time. If we have to stay here for a long time, it will be really bad. Although they had passed through all kinds of situations very calmly so far, no one knew what would happen in the end, as the origin energy became weaker and weaker. If they lost all their origin energy in the end, just the bad weather alone would be enough to kill them. Hearing this, everyone's hearts sank. This was indeed a mysterious and strange place, but the risks involved were not small. Other than that, everyone had another worry in their hearts. They didn't know if the disappearance of the origin energy was temporary or if it had truly disappeared. The various situations before them made it impossible for them to make an accurate judgment. The only thing they could do was to continue moving forward. A cloudy day was undoubtedly the best weather for everyone. In such an environment, the speed of everyone's advance was also much faster than before. However, the good times did not last long. It had only been 4 hours, and everyone found that the weather had begun to change again. It's suddenly chilly again. Is it going to get cold again? Shangguan Yingying looked at the vast land in front of her and frowned. The sudden change in temperature was extremely uncomfortable. A cold wind blew past. It was bone-chilling. From the time when everyone noticed the change in the weather to the time when the temperature dropped, it had only been the time for an incense stick to burn. In the blink of an eye, it was already winter. What terrible weather! Everyone took out thicker clothes from their chinkoan bags. However, due to their cultivation, they didn't need to wear thick clothes even in winter. At this moment, they had no choice. This is only temporary. If we persist, it won't be long before the sky changes. A clear and sweet voice sounded, and Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were firm as she looked at everyone. Even though they had only been here for a few days, they had already completely adapted to the weather. Chapter 6296. However, the situation was far worse than what everyone had imagined. Bang, bang, bang. It's hailstones. Quickly find a place to hide. Suddenly, countless hailstones fell from the sky. Once the fist-sized hailstones fell on their bodies, the pain was still extremely intense. If they were not careful and were hit by more than one hailstone, even they could be seriously injured. Quick, go to the front. Deep Beichun pointed at a hill in front of them and shouted. Everyone sped up, dodging the hailstones as they rushed forward at full speed. There were no caves or places to hide in the surroundings. This was something that everyone had already noticed when they were moving forward. So at this moment, when everyone arrived at a hill, they did not hesitate to pick up a shovel and start digging a cave. In this situation, other than this method, they could not find any other way. Even if it would take some time, as long as they could endure it, everything would be fine. While Di Beichen and the others were digging a cave, Di Xiaofeng and Bailey Yunyan raised the boat above everyone's head. Clang, clang, clang. The hailstones fell on the boat and made a violent sound. Di Beichen and the others' hands were moving quickly. If they were not careful and were hit by the hailstones, bruises would immediately appear on their bodies. Not long after, everyone finally dug out a cave that could accommodate them and hid in it. My God, something like hailstones can even happen. This damn weather is simply deliberately messing with us. Xiao Xuanzi rubbed his shoulder. Even if he tried his best to dodge, the hailstones still inevitably hit his body. Fortunately, he was originally a demonic beast, and his body was relatively strong. Even if his spirit energy had degenerated, his physical strength was still there. Other than a slight pain, there were no major problems. As for Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, their situation was slightly worse. Although they usually paid attention to tempering their bodies, there were still some differences between them and demonic beasts. The feeling of this hailstone hitting my body is like being kicked out by someone. When Xiren rubbed his arm, do you think that if we continue to move forward, the sky will not fall from the sky? Puchi, Shangguan Yingying, who was originally annoyed, suddenly laughed. Hailstones should be the most exaggerated. How could there be knives? The effect of this hail is not much worse than a knife. I'm afraid we'll be tortured to death by this weather before we even reach our destination. Xiren shook his head. Normally, he only felt that his strength was enough to deal with many crises. He did not pay much attention to the power of heaven and earth. However, after this encounter, he finally understood how terrifying the power of nature was. We do have to be careful from now on. Di Beichen's expression turned grave. Our elemental energy has regressed a lot, and it's still regressing. This means that before we reach our destination, we may become ordinary people who have never cultivated before. When that time comes, whether it is our speed or our physical condition, it will be far from what it is now. If we encounter another hailstorm, Di Baichen's voice stopped, but everyone understood that they could not underestimate this weather. Otherwise, they might really lose their lives here. Could it be that this strange place wants to use such a special method to let us experience what despair is? Chapter 62:97. It's useless for us to think so much now. Since we're already here, we can only continue forward. Bailey Hongzhuang's ink-black phoenix eyes were filled with determination as always. She believed that they would definitely be able to pass through this place. The greater the difficulty they encountered now, the greater the rewards they would reap in the future. Since the inheritance could appear in this place, it could be seen that the person who left the inheritance had also passed through this place. One could only imagine how powerful this person was. The hail fell for an entire night, and everyone stayed in the cave for an entire night. This night was exceptionally difficult to endure because the coldness had already seeped into their bones and blood. If not for their perseverance, once they fell asleep in this cold night, they might never wake up again. The next day was another sunny day. Compared to the hailstorms and torrential rain, this sunny day was already the best weather for everyone. As everyone continued forward, their primary energy gradually dissipated, and everyone's appearance gradually began to change. Originally, everyone was wholeheartedly rushing forward, and only a sunny day was the most suitable time to rush. If they did not hurry now, once they encountered bad weather, they did not know how long they would have to wait. Suddenly, Bailey Hongzhuang felt that her clothes seemed to have become a little bigger. Why did the sleeves of her clothes suddenly become longer? Just as she was thinking, she suddenly noticed Di Baichen's face beside her, and her heart was suddenly filled with surprise. "Baichen, you seem to have changed a little." Hearing this, Di Baichen slowed down his steps and looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with some confusion. He was also a little surprised. "Wife, your face, my face?" Bailey Hongzhuang subconsciously touched her face with her hand, not understanding what this meant. At the same time, Shangguan Yingying and the rest also looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. Everyone was curious. "Hongzhuang, you seem to have suddenly become a little smaller." In fact, Bailey Hongzhuang's appearance had not changed much over the years. The only difference was that she was less tender and more mature. However, the Bailey Hongzhuang in front of them reminded them of the time in Tianyang sect. At that time, Bailey Hongzhuang also looked like this. Bailey Hongzhuang was slightly stunned. Baichen is the same. Usually, they were together day and night, so she didn't feel much about Baichen's change. However, just now, she suddenly noticed that Baichen's face was a little more tender, and only then did she notice the difference. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, everyone turned to look at Di Baichen. Their expressions became very interesting. "Yeah, Baichen has changed too. Ziren, you've changed too." After taking a closer look, they realized that not only had Baichen and Hongzhuang changed, but everyone present had shrunk as well. I was wondering why I felt that the clothes had become bigger. It turns out that the people have become smaller. Bailey Hongzhuang was surprised and also felt a little funny. Looking at Baichen like this, it reminded her of the time when they first met. So many years had passed unknowingly. Where's this place? It's fine if the cultivation has weakened, but even the people have become smaller. Shang Guanying's face was full of disbelief. This experience was really too shocking. She couldn't imagine what kind of means could make people change like this. This was beyond the scope of their understanding. Chapter 62:98. Bailey Hongzhuang sensed it carefully, and a look of surprise appeared on her face. That does seem to be the case. Everyone carefully recalled their current cultivation level. It was indeed the same as their age. Their initial worries lessened and were replaced by a sense of novelty. This is too strange. How did it become like this? Ling Er was confused. As a member of the Dragon Clan, she had come into contact with many novel things. However, this situation was clearly far beyond her knowledge. Everyone looked at each other. This kind of thing had never happened before. They had never even heard of it. Let's continue forward. Perhaps we'll become like when we were young. The corners of Di Baichen's lips curled into a faint smile. This kind of scene was indeed a very special experience. If it was an illusion, then this kind of power was too shocking. Hearing this, Everyone nodded and resolutely continued forward. Since they had already come here, there was no way they would back out. Moreover, it was very interesting to find out the reason for all this. Everything was as everyone had expected. As they got closer to their destination, their appearances became smaller and smaller. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the little boy in front of her. Her eyes were filled with joy. She had never seen Di Beichen's appearance as a child. This guy had indeed been good-looking since he was a child. Hongzhuang, I didn't expect you to have changed so much. Shang Wanning walked to Bailey Hongzhuang's side. Her eyes were filled with curiosity. I think it's quite interesting now. It's as if we've known each other since we were young. I've changed a lot. Bailey Hongzhuang raised an eyebrow and asked. Shang Wanning nodded and casually took out a mirror. Look, isn't this quite a big change? Bailey Hongzhuang originally didn't take Shangguan Yingying's words to heart. However, when she saw the familiar yet unfamiliar face in the mirror, her expression suddenly changed. Hongzhuang, what's wrong? Shangguan Yingying couldn't help but ask when she saw Bailey Hongzhuang's shocked expression in the mirror. Logically speaking, they should have guessed the situation before them and shouldn't be so shocked. However, Bailey Hongzhuang's heart was in a perilous situation. Not for any other reason, but because the face reflected in the mirror was not her previous appearance. It was her appearance in her previous life. This face had only appeared in her memories. However, it had truly appeared now. This incident had shocked her more than anything before. Aside from Beichen, no one else knew about this. However, in this mysterious place, she had actually become her real self. At this moment, Bailey Hongzhuang only felt a chill run down her spine. What kind of terrible power was this? So many incredible things could happen. Hongzhuang, are you all right? After a long while, Bailey Hongzhuang recovered from her thoughts. Her face was filled with shock and disbelief. She shook her head and said, I'm fine. Didn't you just see your childhood appearance? Why are you so shocked? Shangguan Yingying heaved a sigh of relief. You scared me to death. I thought something had happened. Chapter 62-99. Mo Yunjua looked deeply at Bailey Hongzhuang. A faint light flashed in his deep and enchanting eyes. Even though the young face in front of him was still very beautiful, the difference was too big. A person who saw their own appearance when they were young would definitely not reveal such a shocked expression. And Hongzhuang's expression, just now, was clearly very strange. After sweeping away the doubts of Shangguan Yingying and the others, everyone then continued on their way. They were a little curious as to what they would become in the end. At this time, Di Beichen walked to Bailey Hongzhuang's side. His concerned voice sounded in her ear. Wife, is this how you looked in your previous life? Bailey Hongzhuang was slightly stunned. She did not expect Di Beichen to have guessed it so quickly. She nodded, not hiding anything. Between her and Di Beichen, there had never been any secrets. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang nod, Di Beichen's expression became very complicated. What kind of power was this, to be able to change the appearance of the deepest part of the soul? Then those people who had taken over her body would have nowhere to hide. Face her true self in her heart? This matter is really getting more and more interesting. The corners of Di Beichen's lips raised slightly. The memories of his childhood kept appearing in his mind. When he was young, he followed his master to gain experience and played around with Xiren. Those memories that were gradually fading gradually became clear at this moment. Everyone's mood unconsciously became happy. When he was young, he was the most carefree. He did not know what worry was. He only cared about whether he was happy or not. Even Bailey Hongzhuang did not have the pain and ridicule of childhood in this life. In her previous life, she grew up in the palms of her clansmen. Every elder treated her as the apple of their eye. Even if she did something wrong, when they reprimanded her, they would not be so cruel as to scold her. Her childhood memories were recovering. Ever since she had transmigrated, she would occasionally remember everything from her previous life. That was a memory she did not dare to touch, because every time she thought of it, she would feel a little sad. If possible, she really wanted to see her grandfather again. She really wanted to see those old men who she had taken the opportunity to pull their beards. Their smiles were always so warm in her memory, but she did not fulfill the expectations of the elders for her. and died early, even implicating the Bailey family. She knew very well that no one would blame her. How could these old men, who loved her to the bone, blame her? However, she had no way not to blame herself. Back then, that little girl was also mischievous every day when she studied. She recalled this scene in her mind. Unknowingly, tears had already blurred her vision. Shangwan Yu of the general's residence. They all knew that when she was young, she was always bullied when she was young. Of the general, of the time, of the Bailey Hongzhuang, of the Beichin. Other than Bailey Hongzhuang, Mo Yunjue was still expressionless. Even when he was young, he was still so cold. His lonely figure could not help but make people's hearts ache. The only difference was that his eyes were filled with hatred and killing intent. Looking at Mo Yunjue like this, everyone felt their hearts ache. They had always been curious as to why Mo Yunjue had such a cold temperament. Other than Hong Zhuang's every frown and smile, everything else seemed to have nothing to do with him. Chapter 60-300. It turned out that Mo Yunjue had become like this at such a young age. Even if they didn't know what had happened to him, they knew that it was definitely not a happy childhood just by thinking about it. His cold-bloodedness and indifference started when he was young. No wonder it was ingrained into his bones and couldn't be changed. As everyone's appearance became smaller and smaller, they finally stopped at the appearance of 6 or 7 years old and never changed again. Everyone finally relaxed when they saw this. Otherwise, if he were to become an infant, then how would they be able to find the inheritance? Not only that, but the weather also stopped changing, allowing everyone to let out a sigh of relief. Looks like the situation isn't as bad as we thought. At least we won't lose our lives for now. Di Bei-chen's gaze fell in front of him. He could already see the blue sea as far as his eyes could see. They were getting closer and closer to their destination. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the map in her hand and compared it to the environment in front of them. The location marked on the map is here. Hearing this, everyone's eyes lit up. We've finally reached our destination. But according to the location marked on the map, the inheritance is in the ocean. But right now, we don't have any cultivation and we're still children. It's very dangerous for us to enter the ocean. Di Xiaofeng looked at the boundless ocean in front of him and his heart sank. With their current situation, no matter how you looked at it, it would be very difficult for them to enter the inheritance. Let's take it one step at a time. Mo Yunjue's voice sounded. Since the inheritance was set up, there must be a way to obtain it. Everyone nodded. What he said was true. Since the inheritance was left behind, there was no way that they wouldn't have a chance to obtain it. Perhaps the cultivator who drew this map in the past couldn't pass this stage, but was unwilling to give up, so he thought of a way to draw this map. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the map in her hand and didn't feel optimistic about the situation in front of her. To be able to draw such a map and leave here, this person's strength was definitely not simple. Even so, this person hadn't succeeded. With their current situation, they didn't have any advantage. As they got closer and closer to the ocean, their vision became wider and wider. Looking at the sea in front of them, everyone was at a loss. With such small arms and legs, it would be a problem for them to row the boat. Just as everyone was pondering, a deep and powerful voice suddenly sounded in everyone's ears. Are you tired? Along the way, you've gradually grown up. You've experienced sadness and exhaustion. Do you feel that it's been hard? You were so simple and pure when you were a child. Before all the damage was done, you were just your original self, the most simple and happiest person. This voice was like the sound of an immortal. It came from far away, but it also seemed to resound in everyone's hearts. After hearing these words, the voices and smiles of the dead unconsciously appeared in everyone's minds. It's been hard on you. You've been injured so many times. There's always someone trying to hurt you. Even if it's someone you're trying your best to protect, he might not understand you at all. Everything you've worked so hard for might not be recognized by others. You've wandered the world until now, and you've obtained everything you've ever wanted. But are you really happy?